Today was a fairy tale. Mary Rouge. Summary. Instead of betraying the Starks, Theon goes to King's Landing to rescue Sansa. Major canon divergence from there. Disclaimer, I do not own Game of Thrones or its characters. They belong to GRM. ***** epilogue posted separately. Notes. Hey guys. I'm a big Theon lover and Theon's a shipper, so I thought I'd give a go at writing a story for them. This story will be quite canon divergent, I'm not sure how much just yet, but keep that in mind. It's also going to be more connected to show canon as opposed to books, but again, take that with a grain of salt. This story is going to pick up right after Balon refused Robb's offer of an alliance, and after Theon learns that Balon plans to attack the north. Instead of burning his letter to Robb, Theon sends it, and that is where my story starts. Chapter 1, The Rescue. Chapter text. Theon sends the raven to Robb at first light. And he struggles to think of what to do next. He doesn't want to stay on Pike, and disappoint his father any more than he already has. I can't stay on Pike, he thinks, now that I've just betrayed my family. He tries to think of what to do. Assuming Robb trusts him, he will undoubtedly go north to defend his home, abandoning his pursuit of Joffrey and saving his sisters. Theon could head north himself, and help protect Bran and Rickon, help them prepare for the Greyjoys' attack, but he's not sure what he could do showing up to Winterfell on his own. He tries to think of what Lord Stark would do. Ned, his real father, who lost his head in King's Landing. King's Landing, he thinks again. With Robb heading back north, who will save the girls? I will, he thinks. I will save the girls, bring them home, and earn my place as a true Stark. Robb already thinks of him as a brother, he's said as much. Maybe by returning the girls back safely, Lady Catelyn will finally stop looking at him with such disdain. Maybe Maester Lewyn and Sir Roderick won't treat him as such a foolish boy. I will go to King's Landing. He decides, hoping he hasn't chosen wrong. Getting out of the Iron Islands and back to the mainland proves easier than he would have thought, it just takes longer than he would have liked. Wanting to remain under the radar, he stole a simpler crab fishing boat, as opposed to a more adept vessel like the Sea Bitch. He buys a horse from a farmer on the outskirts of the crag and begins his journey to King's Landing. It takes him a few weeks to get there, but finally, he does. He stays hidden in the streets of King's Landing, where many commoners seem to have gathered. The Princess Myrcella is being shipped off to Dorne this morning, a merchant tells him. Theon had been at the store looking for rope. Is that right? He asks casually. I reckon she's being sent off right now, the merchant replies. In a few minutes the king and his family will walk through the streets on their way back to the keep. Theon agrees, trying to sound only mildly interested. He buys his rope and then walks off to the crowd. Arya and Sansa will be headed this way, he thinks. For surely they'd escort Myrcella along with the rest of them. He tries to make his way to the near front of the crowd. Not too close, but close enough he'll be able to see everyone as they walk by. Soon enough, he hears the crowd quiet down. Joffrey leads the walk back to the keep, his Kingsguard and family close behind. After a minute he spots Sansa, walking back with two other women. Where's Arya? He worries, his eyes frantically scanning the rest of the party, and not finding her anywhere. One at a time, he thinks quickly, and his eyes lock again on Sansa. He tries to think of an opportune moment to get to her, when luck finally comes his way. Joffrey is struck with a piece of dung and chaos ensues. His hand grasps the hilt of his sword as he tries to get to her through the crowd. Sansa, he yells when he's close enough. She looks towards his voice, a frightened expression covering her face. Theon. She mouths, a gasp escaping her lips. He gets to her and pulls her out of the hands of the two girls with her. Where's Arya? He asks, slightly panicked. He thought for sure he'd have seen her by now and worries she's lost deep in the crowd. Sansa shakes her head. She's not. How Sansa falls, knocked to the ground by someone nearby. Theon quickly helps her up and holds her to his side. She's not here. She's gone. You're sure? He asks, glancing around worriedly. Gone since Father. Sansa can't finish the thought and Theon doesn't need her to. He takes a deep breath and wraps a secure arm around Sansa's waist. We need to run. he says. And they do. They run past all the commotion and turn into an empty street, then turn again, and again, not stopping for anything. Where's Rob? Sansa asks. Are we going to him? No, Theon answers. He's not here. This slows Sansa down. Theon tries to pull her ahead but she pulls him back. He looks at her and flinches. He's never seen a girl look quite so frightened. Sansa, listen to me, he says as calmly as he can. Rob's not here, he's further north, ideally back in Winterfell now, but look, I'll explain everything. I will. But right now, I need to get you out of here. Once we're out of the city we can regroup, but until then, I need you to trust me. Do you trust me? Rob's not here. She asks sadly, very nearly on the verge of tears. No, he answers slightly frustrated. Rob is not always the one who saves the day, he thinks. Sansa, do you trust me? She hesitates. He can see her thinking those cruel words Lady Catelyn always said. Never trust a Greyjoy. Ordinarily Theon wouldn't care if Sansa trusted him. He wouldn't even care if she liked him. But this was the first Stark he'd seen since deciding to put them before his own family. And how could she not like him now, he thinks, when I've come to rescue her like a knight in all those stories she used to chirp about. One like the ones in the songs she used to sing to little Bran and Rickon. Am I really so bad? Not good enough for the Greyjoys or the Starks. I trust you, Sansa says finally, breaking him out of his thoughts. He nods at her and pulls her arm again, and they take off in another sprint. They ran all the way to where Theon had left his horse, tied up in the forest just a few miles off the King's Road. He was surprised to find the horse still there. He had only left him there this morning but thought for sure someone would have stolen him by now. Theon lets go of Sansa's hand and begins to untie the horse, readying him for the long ride to come. Sansa sits down on a nearby tree stump catching her breath. He looks over at her occasionally but her mind appears to be elsewhere, and her eyes stare off into the distance. When the horse is ready, Theon walks over to Sansa. He places a hand on her shoulder, making her jump. Sorry, he says, pulling his hand away. No, I'm sorry too. She replies slowly. Are you good to keep going? I think we'd do best to ride through the night. Is that safe? She asks. More safe than staying here, we're barely outside the city. Okay, she sighs, standing up. The two of them walk over to the horse. You can ask me questions as we ride along, he says, trying to ease at least some of the worry and fear off her face. Sansa pets the horse's face and neck and the horse nuzzles into her. For a brief moment, a slight smile breaks on her face. Maybe not a true smile, but something more than the frown she'd been carrying the entire time he'd been with her. It gives him hope. Can I lift you up? He asks worriedly, remembering how quick she flinched from his touch moments before. Sansa blushes, looking embarrassed. She looks down at the ground but nods her head. Theon takes off his cloak, securing it around her shoulders and then pulling the hood up, to hide her hair. He lifts her onto the horse and lets her settle, before he climbs on behind her and nudges the horse to go. Theon's not sure where to go at first. The King's Road is way too dangerous while they are still close to King's Landing and the Gold Road would take them too far off course. Head for Riverrun, Sansa says. My grandfather's there, and my uncle too. If we can get there safely my grandfather can send word to my mother and at the very least she'll know I'm safe. It seems as good a plan as any, so Theon turns the horse northwest and they begin their journey to the Riverlands. The first hour is quiet. Sansa seems to be lost in her thoughts and Theon tries to remain on high alert lest they be caught. He's somewhat assured that no one has come for them yet, but that doesn't mean no one will. It isn't until the second hour that Sansa finally speaks up. You said that Rob was north, ideally in Winterfell, why? I thought he was coming south to rescue me. He was, Theon answered, being careful with how he words his reply. Rob sent me to Pike, to negotiate an alliance with my father. My father wasn't too receptive, and instead told me of his plan to invade the north now that it was unguarded. I sent word to Rob and then decided to get you. I haven't heard from Rob since, and have no easy way to contact him now, but ideally he's listened to me and headed back. So Rob was coming to rescue me? Sansa asks. Theon rolls his eyes, not that she can see it. Yes, my lady, the king in the north was headed to bring you home, he only now has to make sure you have a home to go back to. Sansa senses his mockery, not that Theon tried too hard to hide it, and quips back with my brother a king I am a princess am I not a lady. Lady, she thinks of her direwolf sadly. To distract herself she gets their conversation back on track. So if your father wants to attack the north, why aren't you with him, helping him? My father holds no love for me. Thinks of me as too much of the north and no longer a true Ironborn. It even seems like my sister agrees. They're my family, and not only do they not trust me, but they don't love me. Hell, I don't even think they like me. I figured I'd help the family I know cares for me more. Even if it's not saying much. Sansa can hear the sadness in his voice and surprises herself by feeling pity for him. She didn't think she could feel pity for anyone anymore. Rob loves you. You're like a brother to him. To all the boys. Arya even. She tries to cheer them up. But not to you, he asks. Sansa can't tell if he's joking or not and doesn't quite know how to respond. It's okay. You're not exactly my favorite person either, Theon jokes, but then his voice gets serious. What did happen to Arya? You never said exactly. She ran away the day father was arrested. No one's seen her since. I think she's gone. The thought makes Sansa's throat swell, and she can feel tears begin to form in her eyes. She and Arya never truly got along, but Arya was her sister, and she'd give anything to have her next to her right now. Alive and well and happy. A change in subject. Theon asks. Sansa nods, knowing he can feel it with her back to his chest. Theon tries to think of something to say, but he doesn't know what will or won't strike a chord. The silence draws on for longer than he intended, yet Sansa's the one to break it. What's his name? Whose? Theon asks, confused. The horse. Oh, he doesn't have one. Why not? Sansa asks, sounding slightly appalled. I don't know, I haven't really had time to think of a name for him. There's been more pressing matters at hand these last few weeks. Oh, Sansa says, sounding almost embarrassed. Why don't you name him? Me. Sure. Then I'll have the great honor of telling everyone I know that the princess in the north named my trusty steed, he teased. Sansa smiled slightly, in spite of herself, happy that her back was to him and he couldn't see he'd gotten her smile. Let me think. Take your time, princess. Clearly he was enjoying this new nickname she had unintentionally given herself. Maximus, maybe. Bit of a mouthful, don't you think? Not really, she thought to herself. We could call him Max for short, and besides, it's a strong name, fit for a strong horse such as he. In any case, it's better than having no name and calling him horse or whatever it was that you were. Theon chuckled to himself. He had been calling him that. Max it is, he agreed. They rode for several hours more, before finally taking a break about 2 hours before sunset. I still think we should ride through the night, Theon tells her, but we'll give the Max a bit of a respite while we ourselves freshen up. They were next to a narrow and shallow creek. Theon tied up Max nearby so that he could easily drink water. Then went off to go look for something for them to eat, telling Sansa to stay by the stream, that he wouldn't go far, and to holler if she needed him. He seemed to hesitate at that last part, and then reached to his belt and pulled off a small dagger. He handed it to her, saying it was just a precaution and she really need not worry. Sansa nodded at him, though it didn't calm her thoughts. Sansa sat next to Max, dipping her feet in the water. It felt nice after all that had happened that day. Refreshing. She wished she could take a bath, put on a new dress that wasn't so southern styled, and go to sleep in her bed back in Winterfell, but those were ambitious dreams she wouldn't achieve for some time, if at all. She looked down at her reflection in the creek and saw her hair. It was still in its southern updo from the morning, though a substantial amount had fallen out in all her running. She brought her hands up to her head and pulled the rest of her hair free, before brushing through it with her fingers and braiding it back in a style her mother often wore. Oh, how she missed her mother. She wished her mother could be the one to braid her hair now. She wished to hold little Raccoon in her lap and tell him a story, to watch as Rob helped Bran train in the yard, to hear Arya make fun of Bran in between talking to Jon. She even missed Jon. That half-brother she tried not to think of. She didn't hate Jon, or anything, but he made her mother so sad sometimes that Sansa had seen her crying. She would be nicer to Jon when she sees him again, she decides. She would find something for them to bond over. She missed her father, and Lady too, but tried not to think of them. She found little sense in missing things she could never get back, especially considering how much she had lost. Sansa finished her braid just as Theon came back into the clearing. He had an armful of sticks in one arm and carried a dead rabbit in the other. He smiled at her when their eyes met. "I figured we could light a small fire," he told her. "One that will leave a small enough smoke trail most will choose to ignore it, if they even see it at all. I have some bread and my bag and we should eat it before it goes stale." He motioned to the bag at the foot of the tree Max was tied to, "and I figure we could smoke the whole rabbit and save most of it to eat as we go." Sansa nodded at him, and reached her hands out. "I can skin the rabbit if you want to start the fire." She by no means wanted to skin the rabbit, but she didn't know how to start a fire and didn't want to be useless. Theon had done a lot to get to her, to bring her home. She had never given him much thought before, and now she could never forget him for the kindness he had shown her. Theon handed her the rabbit and then got to work on the fire. When the rabbit was well and cooked, Theon cut it up into small pieces and packaged them all away in his bag. He loaded the bag onto Max's back and then reached his hand out for Sansa, to lift her up. Even now, she still hesitated to grab his hand, as if she couldn't trust that his kindness was a mask for his cruelty like Joffrey's had been. But then Theon smiled at her, and it was a true smile, unlike any she had ever seen of Joffrey's. Sansa walked over to Theon and let him lift her up. He then climbed up behind her and they went on their way. They rode for a few hours into nightfall, and Theon could sense Sansa struggling to stay awake. She was leaning back against him fully, and every so often her head would fall to the side, as she began to doze off, but she'd catch herself and try to straighten herself to stay awake. "It's okay," Theon told her quietly. "You can go to sleep, I'll wake you up when I need to." "Are you sure?" Sansa tried to argue. "I don't want to make you stay awake and not me. It's not fair, it's not." "It will be better," Theon interrupted. "That at least one of us is rested. You need to sleep more than I do." "Are you sure?" "I'm positive, Princess." "Thank you." "It's no problem, I'll sleep tomorrow." "No," Sansa said. "I mean, yes, but, I meant thank you for rescuing me. For getting me out of there. You're like a knight from all those stories I used to love. I stopped believing in them a long time ago, but now, I don't know. Thank you. It's my honor to bring you home, Princess, to serve your family proud," Theon answered earnestly. No tone of mocking in his voice whatsoever. "Our family," Sansa corrected. "For Rob loves you like a brother, and Rob is king, so that makes you as much his family as it does me." Theon didn't know what to say to that. He felt his heart warm, finally feeling cared for after the ache it experienced at his father's disregard for him. He tried to think what Rob would do, or Lord Stark, and kissed Sansa on the top of her head. "Good night, Princess," he whispered to her. "Sleep well." Chapter 2, Trouble on the Road. Summary. Theon and Sansa run into some trouble on their way to Stony September. Notes. See the end of the chapter for notes. Chapter text. Sansa woke up in a fit of panic, forgetting where she was, and then realizing she wasn't where she thought she'd be either. She was no longer in King's Landing, but she was also no longer sitting on Maximum. She sat up abruptly and looked around. Her eyes landing on Theon, who in turn, was sitting not far from her and staring at her with a weird look in his eyes. Sansa almost thought he was angry, but she wasn't sure why. Had she slept too long? Were they falling too far behind? Theon's voice pulled her out of her thoughts. "That bruise below your eye?" he asked, motioning to the spot just above her cheekbone. "Did he put it there?" Sansa looked down at her lap, embarrassed and ashamed. "Not him exactly. He says a king doesn't hit his lady, but he had no problem having one of his men hit me." She saw no point in lying, but did not realize how badly the truth would hurt even her ears. "And did the king's men hit you often?" Theon asked, sounding much angrier than before. Sansa looked up at him, then back down again when she saw the look in his eyes. After every battle Robb won, she told him. And sometimes just when he felt like it. Theon scoots towards her and out of instinct Sansa cowers away, but his rough, calloused hands grab her face gently, as he pulls her to look at him. He will not lay a hand on you ever again, Theon promised. Not him, or his men. I won't let them. Sansa only nodded, attempting to look at her lap again, but he wouldn't let her. Do you believe me? He asked, not letting her break his gaze. I do, she said, and she was surprised to realize she meant it. Good. He says. He looks at her for a moment longer and then snaps his head away, like he shouldn't be looking at her at all. He stands up and walks over to Max, who is standing in the drinking water. How much longer did we ride last night? Sansa asks. Theon looks up from petting Max, just until sunrise. We're going to rest a little longer here and then begin traveling again at midday. He tells her. Wouldn't it be safer to travel at night? Sansa asks. It would. And it wouldn't. We're less likely to be caught at night, but if we are, it looks quite suspicious. We're a little more than a week away from Stony September. We'll get there, stay a day or two so that we can restock on supplies, and I can send word to Winterfell. From there it's a week to Riverrun, give or take a day depending on weather and terrain. By the time we get there should be word from Robb or Lewin or someone, and we'll see what's next. At the very least you'll be safe in Riverrun. Isn't family part of the Tully house's words? Family. Duty. Honor. Sansa recites, a hint of pride in her voice. Theon simply nods at her and goes back to petting Maximum. Did you sleep at all last night? Sansa asks. No, I didn't want to risk us not keeping watch. Theon answers, as if it's no big deal. As if he's not exhausted, which she knows can't possibly be true. You should sleep now. I can keep watch. Theon looks over at her like she must be joking. When he realizes she's not, he answers her. I'll be fine, princess. There's a bunch of vegetables along the river. I'm going to gather those, so us and Max have something to eat other than the rabbit. He squats down by the river's edge and starts to pull what looks to be a tall flower stem out of the ground. We can eat that. Walking over to him, he hands her the plant for her to look at. Not the flowers, no. But the leaves and tubers are edible. Here. He breaks off a piece and hands it to her. Then breaks off a piece for himself. She waits for him to eat his before she eats hers, and when she does, she's pleasantly surprised to find it doesn't taste terrible. Almost like a potato, but sweeter. What is it called? She asks. My brother Roderick used to call them duck potatoes, but my mother, called it Katniss. Those are two very different names. Sansa noted. Theon shrugs. They were two very different people. You never talk about them much. Theon shrugs again. People don't tend to ask about my family. My traitorous father who led a failed rebellion, a rebellion that killed my brothers and made my mother go mad with grief. They don't ask and I don't tell them. Do you miss her? Your mother? Theon sits down near the riverbank, then lays down beneath the trees so that his body is basked in the sun and his face is tucked in the shade. He keeps his gaze up, and not at Sansa, when he answers her. Yes. And no. Mostly I miss that I can't remember her. It gets harder and harder as the years go by. Oh, Sansa answers, looking down at her feet. Theon realizes what he said and sits up to look at her. I didn't mean it like that, he tells her. I still remember her, she was a good mother to me, she loved me dearly, and I'll never forget that. But I was but a boy when I had to leave her, I don't have many memories of anything let alone her from my early age. You'll always be able to remember your father. He'll be in your mind always, as well as in the minds of all those in Winterfell. He was loved by all, and time will show it. I was so mean to him towards the end. So cold and resentful. I just wish I could take it all back. Maybe if I had been better, things could have been different. Maybe Theon agrees. But probably not. And it's better to not worry about things you can't change. At that last word, he begins to yawn and tries to stifle it when Sangza gives him a pointed look. Go to sleep, she tells him. I'll gather up more of the Katniss. Theon doesn't protest this time. He simply lies back down again and closes his eyes, mumbling, as you wish, princess, as he drifts off to sleep. A few hours later, Sangza wakes Theon up with a couple taps on his shoulder. Peering down at him, he opens his eyes slowly. It's midday, she tells him. You can sleep longer if you'd like, but you said you wanted to get going again by midday, so I figured I'd wake you. Theon yawns and stretches before sitting up. I'm good to get going, he tells her. We'll make camp tonight and be able to sleep then. Are you ready to go? She nods at him as he stands up and she makes to walk away, but he stops her, gently, and then takes hold of the end of her braid, twisting it in his fingers. Do you like it? Sangza asks. After she had gathered what she thought would be enough Katniss stalks, she picked off all the leaves and tubers and wrapped them in a cloth. She then took the flowers from the stalks and rebraided her hair, interweaving a flower here and there as she went. It's nice, Theon told her. When we get to Stony September we should look for a new dress for you. You're far too pretty. Especially with that southern dress. Sangza felt a blush creep up her face. She wasn't sure if he had meant that to be a compliment, but it felt like one. Theon noticed her blush and said, we can't have you sticking out too much. Not while we're still in the south. Your red hair and your pretty face make it much easier for us to be noticed. Oh, Sangza thinks, so it wasn't a compliment. For some reason, that thought saddens her. Not wanting to embarrass herself any further, she walks over to Max and begins petting his face. Smiling sweetly at him and whispering to him. A minute later Theon has packed up all their things and walks up behind her. Ready? He asks. She nods and he picks her up and sets her on Maximum. He sets the bag down and then gets on as well, and they're off once again. Being careful to be much more alert now that there's daylight, as they follow the river up north to River Run. They make it 3 days, riding during the daytime and camping at night, before there's any trouble. They had been following Blackwater Flush with no trouble, but when they got near its intersection with the Gold Road, they found that they weren't the only ones headed this way. A group of men were scattered about, axes in hand. They appeared to be clearing out a part of the forest. Theon could feel Sangza tense in front of him. She pulls the hood of his cloak she'd been wearing, over her head. It's okay, Theon whispers to her. Just stay calm, they can't stop us from passing through. But even as he said it, he wasn't so sure. These may not be Lannister men, but anyone could become one at the proper price, and Sangza Stark promised to be a pretty pile of gold if they got their hands on her. But these men didn't know it was Sangza Stark with him. They may not even know Sangza Stark is not in King's Landing. Theon wasn't sure if the Lannisters would want that to be public knowledge or not. There was no time to hesitate, for that would only make a bigger scene, and so Theon nudged Max along, hoping he may go a little bit faster. Whoa there now, a man called out to him. He was a tall and stocky man, with a heavy, tired face, and a voice of deep, thick gravel. What brings you both this way? Having no choice but to stop and talk to the man, Theon did just that. My wife and I are just passing through. We're on our way back to Harrenhal. Harrenhal, you say? It's where we're from. Well, where I'm from, I suppose. Theon struggles to think of what to say, wishing he was a better liar. My wife is from the Reach. We were visiting her family there. Is that so? The man asks, suspicious more of Theon's nerves than his story. And why not take the King's Road back to Harrenhal? Theon stammers for a response, but Sangza beats him to it. That's my fault, I'm afraid. She says, giggling foolishly in a way Theon had never expected her to. I wanted to take the scenic route back home. I so rarely get to travel. Plus, I heard the King's Road was closed to Lannister forces, and how I'd hate to get in their way. Theon can't remember Sangza ever being good at lying in the past. He can think of at least a dozen times from their childhood where she wasn't, but that must have changed while she was south, and he was glad for it. The man smiled sweetly at her, clearly beguiled by her charms. Theon instinctively tightened his arm around her waist. Well now, Theon said. We best get going. Max begins to walk away as the man stops them once again. She's a pretty one you got there, isn't she? The man asks. Why don't you take her hood down so I can get a look at her? I don't see how that's necessary. Theon says coldly, getting ready to bring Max to a canter. I do, another man says, walking over to the first one. And me, a third agrees, joining the first two. Theon can feel just how tense and scared Sangza is as he turns Max back around, getting ready to tell the men off. Sangza takes a deep breath and pulls down her hood, smiling giddily at the men. Oh, don't be silly, dear husband, she says sweetly, swatting his shoulder. They're just being nice. The three men look at her, and the second one speaks up. She is a pretty one, far too pretty for you, lad. Why, I tell him that daily. Sangza jokes with the man. Maybe now he'll finally agree with me. Your hair, the first man says. It's as red as the king's betrothed. There aren't many with red hair down these ways. Is that so? Sangza asks innocently. Back home they'd compare me to the Lady Margari, but I must say being compared to the future queen is by far a mightier compliment. I'll be sure to tell all my friends about this when I get back home. Isn't that nice of him, dear? Sangza asks Theon, elbowing him to get his attention. He looked ready to fight all the men here. Why, yes, my dear. Theon agrees dumbly. We really best be going now, the days are wasting. Theon turns Max back around and sends him to a trot, not wanting to seem over-eager to get out of there. Sangza turns and waves at the men once sweetly, before turning back and leaning back into Theon. That was a close one. She tells him, her voice frightened. Yeah, he agreed. But you did good. When did you get so good at lying? You never used to be. It's a survival skill, I suppose, she says quietly. I never needed it until recently. Notes. Hi guys. I decided to post a second chapter today to see if it gets more interest. Let me know what you all think. Next chapter they'll be arriving at Stony September and I'm excited for that. I hope everyone has a great day. Chapter 3, Stony September. Summary. Theon and Sangza make it to Stony September. Notes. See the end of the chapter for notes. Chapter text. Getting to Stony September comes with no new challenges, and by week's end they've arrived. Theon books a room for them for one night at an inn, as well as a spot for Max in the stables. He also buys Sangza a dress from the innkeeper's wife, who said it belonged to one of their daughters. It's a simple dress, but pretty. A sage green cotton with a full skirt and long sleeves, a rounded neckline and tight-fitted bodice. Sangza puts it on and rebraids her hair, before she and Theon head off to the market square. I need to sharpen some of my tools and get a few more supplies. You can look around if you'd like, Theon tells her. But stay close by. Theon goes off to a stall and begins talking with a merchant, nagging him over the price of a sharpening stone. Sangza looks around, when she spots a fabric stall and makes her way over. There are rows and rows of different fabrics, some bright and decadent, others thick and practical. It makes her fingers ache to look at it all. She had forgotten how much she missed sewing. There hadn't been much time for it lately, but it used to be one of the only things she did back in Winterfell. She stays at the stall for a while, looking over it all, when Theon walks up beside her. Did you sew much, while you were away? Theon asks. No, Sangza answers. Not really. They didn't really let me. Do you miss it? More than I thought I would, she says. Theon motions over to the merchant at the stall. We would like to get some fabric, he tells the man. Sangza looks over at Theon surprised. He shrugs at her. You'll need a cloak, he tells her. And I'm sure you'd like an additional dress too. Sangza smiles gratefully at Theon, then looks back over the fabrics with fresh eyes. She settles on a soft but thick dark grey for her cloak, practical and warm, and for her dress, she chooses a deep purple, one that will hide the bright blue of her eyes. She also asks for some thread and needles, as she will need those too. The merchant cut up the fabric and hands it all to Sangza, as Theon pays the man, then they head back to the inn. They get to their room, and both pointedly ignore the single bed that sat in the center, against the back wall. They were pretending to be man and wife, and therefore only got one room to keep up the charade, but it still made Sangza nervous. Theon seemed to sense this, and so he kept his distance from her as he set all his newly acquired supplies on a table. I need to go to send the raven, he told her. And I'll also go get us something to eat. Why don't you clean up while you're waiting, and then I'll do the same when I get back. I'll have the innkeeper bring up some water for a bath. That would be great, Sansa said quietly, avoiding his gaze. Thank you. Theon nodded at her and then headed out. Sansa sets down her fabrics, eager to start working on the cloak, but ultimately deciding to wait until after she has freshened up. Not 5 minutes later the innkeeper comes up with some water. The water was cold, but Sansa doesn't mind, it feels good to be clean again. She scrubbed her body with soap and then lathered it into her hair and scalp, rinsing it all out and then washing it again. When she finally feels like there is not a speck of dirt on her, she dries off and put on her green dress. She puts her hair up in a braided bun, nothing too intricate like the southern styles she had been wearing, but more than just the simple braids she'd been wearing the past few days. She then got to work cutting her fabric, deciding to start stitching the hood of the cloak first. Theon came back, carrying up his own bath water, by the time she had finished her first few stitches. It had taken her longer than she would have liked to get the stitches right, for she was not as practiced as she used to be. He nodded at her, a small smile on his face, and then walked to the corner of the room where a partition separated the bathtub and wash basin. He began to undress, taking off his tunic and then unbuttoning his undershirt. He was hidden mostly by the partition, but Sansa could see him through the cracks, and for a reason she couldn't explain, she couldn't stop herself from looking at him. He was stronger than she realized, his entire upper body stretched and toned by muscles. Theon caught her staring at him and smirked at her. Like what you see, princess? He teased. Sansa quickly looked away, attempting to busy herself with her stitches. I don't know what you mean, she told him, hoping he would drop the subject. Of course not, he agreed contentedly. But he didn't say any more than that, and Sansa could not bring herself to look over again in his direction. A minute later she heard the water splash, and she blushed. She fumbled her stitch and cursed slightly to herself. She undid the stitch and took a deep breath, trying to focus herself on her sewing. She managed to not mess up the following stitches, but it did prove a challenge. Minutes later, Theon walked back out from behind the partition with a towel around his waist. His chest was very much uncovered for her to see. Sansa couldn't stop the blush that rose to her cheeks, and Theon seemed pleased to see it. Don't worry, princess, this isn't for you. He winked at her. I need to get a fire going so that I can wash my clothes and leave them out to dry. I also think we should burn your old dress. The further north we go, the more attention it will draw. Okay, Sansa replies dumbly, trying her very best not to look at him. Theon got the fire going and then went back to wash his clothes. He laid them to dry by the fireplace before finally putting on his other set of clothes. He sat down at the table and pulled out some of the food he had just bought. Bread and cheese and a little bit of milk. He divided it evenly and handed her a plate, and a cup of milk as well. Thank you, Sansa said, taking them from him. What's the plan for the rest of the day? I figure we'll just stay here, rest up and stay out of sight. We'll leave just after first light tomorrow. If we leave too early it will look too suspicious. He tells her. He takes one of the smaller sticks from the pile by the fireplace and sits down, taking out his knife and whittling away idly. Sansa goes back to her sewing. At the rate she's going, she'll finish the hood today, but it will take her several days to finish the rest of the cloak, and even longer if she wants to add more detail to it. She knows that last thought is impractical, that as long as the cloak works, it's good to go, but she used to love embroidering on all her dresses, adding lace or ruffles or other details, anything to make it prettier. When I'm back home in Winterfell, she thinks, I'll add more details and make it the prettiest cloak I've ever owned. Until then, she'll just make it functional. The hours pass in pleasant silence. Sansa sewing and Theon whittling. He occasionally stops so he can stoke the fire, and then he goes back to his chair and continues whittling away. Sansa's not sure what he's making, if he means to make anything at all, and she can't bring herself to look over at him to find out, still too embarrassed about earlier. But Theon keeps looking at her. She can feel his eyes on her every few minutes. Probably still looking at the bruise below her eye. It's much fainter now, only truly visible when up close, but Sansa wonders if knowing it's there makes Theon see it better. That's not even the worst of it, she thinks to herself. He can't see the bruises and scars that still litter her arms and legs, the ones across her back that she can only imagine. She knows they are still there, that they are still sore and deep. One wrong sitting position, one too quick turn to her side, the pain that ensues reminds her that she's not safe. Not really, she may be out of Joffrey's grasp, but she won't be safe, not truly until she's back home. She trusted Theon when he said he'd get her home, and when he promised to protect her, but the more she thinks about it the less she's sure that he'll be able to keep his promise. He may have saved her once, but what's one man against an entire army that may be sent to bring her back? Back to the torment and the torture that lies in King's Landing. The fear that stands next to her father's head on a spike. That last thought makes her shiver. Are you cold? Theon asks. Sansa looks up at him, the first time in hours. I know. No. I'm fine. She tells him. Nonsense, Theon says. Look at you. You're shaking. Before Sansa can protest, Theon walks over to her and lifts up her chair with her still in it, and sets it down opposite his own, next to fire. There, is that better? He asks. He sits back down in his chair and looks expectantly at her for a response. Yes, thank you, Sansa says, smiling shyly at him. Seeming satisfied, Theon goes back to the stick he was working on. A long part of it has been carved smooth and narrow, with two pieces jutting out at the bottom that look like leaves. Sansa wonders again what it is that he's making, this time no longer too embarrassed to ask. What is that? Theon looks down at his hands, and for once he's the shy one, though she can't imagine why. It's not finished yet, he tells her. What will it be then? You'll see, he tells her, motioning for her to look back down at her sewing. Sansa can't tell if it's just the firelight, or if he has a light blush of his own rising to the cheeks. She can't decide but doesn't want to look at him for too long again, and so she goes back to her sewing. More hours pass. Sansa finishes her hood, and Theon appears to finish whatever it was he was working on, but he still doesn't let her see, packing it away before she gets a chance. They eat more bread and cheese for dinner, and then stand around awkwardly, not wanting to address or acknowledge the lone bed in the room. After what felt like hours but really was probably only a couple of minutes, Theon walked over to the bed and pulled off a pillow. I'll sleep on the floor, just by the fire. You can sleep in the bed. I'm sure it will be much nicer than Max or the ground like you've been using these past few days. Theon tells her. I don't have to, Sansa tells him. She wants nothing more than to sleep in a clean, soft bed, but she doesn't want to take it from Theon either. He had been sleeping on the ground for much longer than she had. No, really, princess, I'll be okay. He sets the pillow down and begins to settle on the floor. Not wanting to argue with him, Sansa goes to the bed. She hesitates, but only briefly, before pulling back the covers and laying down. She and Theon had been on the run together for a little more than a week now, and other than the first 2 days when she had slept during the day, every night they would lie next to each other, about 5 feet apart, with Max tied up about 10 feet from them. It wasn't the most comfortable arrangement, for the ground was quite coarse, but she could see Theon, and Max not far from her, and it always made her feel safe. Here in this bed, she was far more comfortable than she had yet to be, but Max was far away in the stables, and she couldn't see Theon simply by turning her head. It made her shiver despite the warmth. She knew he was still in the room with her, but not being able to see him made her feel uneasy and nauseous. Will you just come here? She asked, her voice breaking halfway through her question. She could hear Theon sit up, feel him look at her quizzically. Are you sure? He asks slowly, skeptically. Yes. That is, if you wouldn't mind, I don't want to be alone. You're not alone, he tells her, still slightly confused. She looks over at him, meeting his eyes. I know, she tells him, adding a silent please to the end, hoping he'll hear it. Theon looks at her long and hard for a few moments, and then his eyes soften. He walks over to the other side of the bed and lays down. Sansa has to fight to control her breathing. She feels better with him next to her, less scared. But she's also nervous. She's never slept this close to a man before. Even though it's only Theon, who, like Robb, is really still only a boy, she can't help but feel apprehensive. Lately, she gets a queasy feeling every time she looks at Theon, like there's butterflies in her stomach. And there seems to be a permanent blush to her cheeks every time he talks to her, whether he's being kind or teasing. She's worried too that Theon's noticed. She doesn't know why it is she can no longer look at Theon the same, and she doesn't want him to know either. I'm not going to try anything, Theon tells her. Sansa looks over at him, surprised to find him looking at her. He continues, you look scared. I just want you to know I'm not going to try anything. I didn't think that you... Yes, you did. He interrupts. And it's okay. I know I have a bit of a reputation back in Winterfell, but you don't have to worry. No one does. I don't want to be like that anymore. Like what? Sansa asks. He looks at her pointedly, not wanting to say it out loud. Why were you like that? You didn't have to be. What made you change your mind? You, he says plainly. Me? Sansa asks, trying and failing to not sound too surprised. And my father. He tells her. Care to elaborate any further? Sansa asks, both curious and embarrassed to find out what he means. No one cares about me back in Winterfell. Only Robb. No one cares about me, and no one listens to me, but at a brothel, all the women love me. And sure, they only love me because I pay them to. But that didn't really bother me before. I don't know, it just felt nice to be cared for. He stops, and hesitates, like he's afraid he's said too much, but Sansa smiles at him encouragingly to continue. And then I go to Pike, see my father and sister after all this time, and they don't care. My dad is ashamed to call me his son. My sister thinks herself far too better than me. And maybe she is, she probably is, she's a true Ironborn and all, but I was okay to not fit in Winterfell, I just took it to mean it wasn't my place. I was meant to be back on the Iron Islands. But if not even my family, my true family can care for me, I don't think the fake love I get at brothels is going to do the trick anymore. Sansa ponders that over for a minute. She had never really thought about it before. Theon was her father's ward, and Robb's best friend, but no one really treated him like he belonged up north, she knows she didn't. She treated him with barely more respect than she treated Jon. What about me? She asks. Where do I fit into that explanation? The night I rescued you, he begins to tell her. You said I was like a knight from all those children's tales. I'm sure you only meant it as a joke, but it made me want it to be true. It made me want to be the kind of man that people admire, and respect, and, well, like. No one likes me with how I was before, but if I try to be better, then maybe people will actually start to like me, care for me even. Sansa looks over and smiles at him. He looks away sheepishly. She grabs his hand and squeezes it, I do, she tells him. He looks back over at her and she clarifies. I like you. I care for you. And when we get home, she emphasizes the word, wanting him to know it's his home as much as hers. Robb will love you more than he does now, so will the boys, for they love you already. You're a brother to them, same to Robb. Even my mother, why, she won't admit it of course, but she'll have to love you for all you've done for me. Thank you, he tells her, returning her smile. He closes his eyes after that and begins to drift off to sleep. Sansa does so as well, and they fall asleep quickly, still holding hands. Notes. Hey guys. I hope everyone is having a great day. I hope you enjoyed the chapter. Please feel free to leave a comment. Let me know if you like how the story is going, or if you think it's too slow / fast paced, or any other thoughts or concerns you have. Chapter 4, Growing Closer. Summary. Sansa and Theon continue their journey to Riverrun. Notes. See the end of the chapter for notes. Chapter text. Theon wakes the next morning, just after daybreak. His arm wrapped tightly around Sansa. He's not quite sure how that happened, he only vaguely remembers falling asleep last night, the first real rest he'd gotten in months. He entangles his arm from around her, careful not to wake her, as he sits up. He gets out of bed and walks over to the fireplace, checking to see that his clothes are dry, which they are. He folds them up and puts them in his bag, contemplating what to do next. He doesn't want to leave Sansa alone, should she wake up while he's gone. He looks over at her, and sighs, remembering their conversation the night before. He shouldn't have told her so much, shouldn't have been so vulnerable with his thoughts and feelings. He knows what came over him, though. Sangza had been so willing to listen, and he can't remember the last time someone cared enough to listen to all he had to say. Rob listened to him, sure, but mostly only when he gave war advice, or encouragement before each battle. Rob and him never really talked about their feelings to each other, and after last night Theon understood why. Everything he told Sangza had been true, and now he felt too embarrassed to be near her, and yet for at least the next week the only company he'd have would be hers and hers alone. Assuming they had no more trouble on the road, which he hoped would be the case. Deciding to let Sangza sleep a little longer, he pulls out his whittling and begins working on it once more. An hour later, Sangza begins to stir. Theon looks up at her as she takes a deep inhale of breath, looking back away before she has a chance to meet his gaze. He can hear her sit up though and stretch her arms and yawn. "Good morning," she tells him brightly. "Morning," he replies. He looks up at her and smiles, unable to stop himself. Sangza steps out of bed and straightens up, fixing her dress from how it twisted the night before. She walks over to the small mirror at the back wall of their room and begins fixing her hair, braiding it into a fresh plait. "What time are we to get on the road today?" she asks him. "As soon as you're ready," he tells her. "I'll be quite glad to see Max," she says. "I worry he may have been too lonely last night." "He was fine," Theon supplies, confused by her effort of small talk. "Probably liked being near other horses for a change." She replies, nodding to him or herself, he's not sure. "I'll go get him," Theon tells her as he stands up. "Assuming you think you'll be ready soon and can meet me out front." "Of course," Sangza says. She sounds disappointed, though Theon can't imagine why. He packs away his whittling and slings the bag over his shoulder, heading towards the stables to see Maximum. Minutes later, Theon is out front of the inn. Standing off to the side of the road, he pets Max and whispers to him quietly. Sangza smiles at the sight. She walks over to the two of them, quickly, eager to get back on the road. Theon lifts her to Max's back swiftly. He doesn't need to ask her beforehand, as she no longer so easily flinches from touch, at least not his. They haven't even been riding for a minute when Sangza makes an effort at small talk again. "What are you most excited for when we get home?" she asks him. She can feel his shrug. "I dunno, haven't really thought that far ahead." "It's not that far ahead, is it?" "Surely, you've thought about what we're to do after reaching Riverrun." "Well, yes, but I need to see what Rob says, and what your grandfather and uncle think too. It's possible that you'll stay back, and I'll go meet up with Rob on the battlefield." Theon wonders aloud. "Why would I stay back?" Sangza asks, slightly worried. She trusts that her grandfather and uncle will care for her, but she doesn't really know them. And she hoped she wouldn't be with them too long before heading for Winterfell. "If my father's siege is a success, which, while unlikely, is still a possibility, Winterfell won't exactly be the safest place for a princess. And if his siege is unsuccessful, which is the more likely outcome, it still might be some time before Winterfell is safe enough for you to go back." "But you'll go back." "Probably. Rob and I make quite a team on the battlefield, you know." Sangza can hear his attempt to jest, but she doesn't find it funny. She's supposed to be home. She's supposed to be on her way home with things back to normal again. She is Sansa Stark of Winterfell. The North is where she belongs. Winterfell is where she belongs. "I could go with you," she suggests, hating how childish her voice sounds, how desperate, but she continues to talk anyway. "I could meet up with Rob and accompany him. Mother will surely want to stay back with Bran and Rickon, and Rob will want her too. I can't imagine it's been easy for him to have her there, as he leads a war." "Exactly," Theon says, only it doesn't sound like he agrees with her. "A war, princess, is no place for, well, a princess. You'll go where it is safest. It's what Rob would want. It's what your lady mother would want. And it's what I want. I didn't risk my neck to save you just so you could go out and die on a battlefield. But. No buts. In any case, it's not either of our decisions, and it's a long enough way out. Let's worry about one thing at a time, Shall we? You do think we'll make it though, to Winterfell? Yes. Someday. Let's just focus on getting to Riverrun first, alright? Alright, Sansa concedes. What should we talk about instead? Must we talk? I don't see why not. How else are we to pass the time? You're just full of energy today, aren't you, princess? Theon asks, a slight teasing and bemusement in his tone. I suppose so. I think last night was the best sleep I've had since I can remember. Me as well, Theon agrees. Me as well. Later that night, they make camp in the forest, keeping a little more than a mile off the road. They are no longer able to follow a river stream, so Theon has to walk a little ways to find water. He finds some though, in the form of a small, shallow pond at a break in the woods. He ties up Max, and then grabs his bow and quiver, going off in search of something they can cook for dinner. While Theon hunts, Sansa looks around for any plants she might be able to grab. Because they are not by a river, there's not any Katniss nearby, and Sansa's not sure of many other safe-to-eat plants. She finds and gathers a few wild onions, and chives as well, figuring something is better than nothing. Next, she begins to gather a small pile of firewood, collecting all nearby sticks and twigs. She finishes that task quickly and then looks around for what to do next. Taking the knife Theon gave her, she begins to cut up the vegetables against a rock, wondering where Theon is. It's almost dark, she thinks. Surely, he'd be back by now. When it gets to near an hour past dark, Sansa begins to seriously worry. He said he wouldn't be gone long, she thinks. She tries to go over the exact last words he had said to her, but she can't remember precisely. Her worry blocking her recollection. Her worry turns to real fear when he still isn't back 10 minutes later. It's pitch dark out, and Sansa can't see a thing. She fumbles her way over to where Max is tied up. When she reaches him, Sansa wraps her arms around his neck and hugs Max tightly. He'll be back soon, she tells him. Max says nothing. I'm sure he just took a wrong turn. But even as she says it aloud, she doesn't believe it. She buries her face into Max's side and begins to cry silently. She doesn't know what to do without Theon. She'll never survive on her own, let alone make it to Riverrun, or to Robb and her mother and brothers. She stays clinging to Max tightly. Her sobs grow louder but are still nothing more than a whisper. She almost screams when she feels a light touch on her shoulder. She turns around, and cowers back into Max, frightened. Hey now, it's alright. Are you crying? Theon asks her, sounding genuinely concerned. Theon. He's back. Without thinking, Sansa flings her arms around his neck and practically jumps into his arms. He hugs her back with just as much enthusiasm, lifting her off the ground. A few moments later, he sets her back down. She pulls back and looks at him, smiling, relief flooding over her, and even in the dark she can see a faint outline of his own. But then her anger and annoyance at him being gone washes over her, and she slaps him right across the face without even meaning to. Shocking herself as much as Theon. Theon stumbles back, but only slightly, for Sansa is not very strong. What was that for? He asks surprised. He covers his cheek with his hand as it stings slightly. Sorry, Sansa is quick to say. No. No. Actually, I'm not sorry. Where the hell were you? It's dark out and you left me all alone. I was meaning to only be gone a few minutes, just get a rabbit or two. But then I saw a deer run past me, and I figured we could use it, the meat and the fur. Only it took a little longer to track it than I thought it would. And then of course I had to carry it back. He motions to the ground beside him, and Sansa can see the deer beside him, shot with a clean arrow to the eye. Now I'm going to start up a fire and cut and skin the deer. As long as that is okay with you, princess. His tone mocking. Sansa sighs, exasperated and slightly guilty. Of course, anything I can do to help. No, Theon tells her. I'll manage. It takes him no time at all to get a fire going. And then he cuts and skins the deer's legs and begins roasting them over the fire. He takes great care to skin the rest of the deer, so that the fur all comes off in one big piece. He then stretches out the skin and hangs it in a nearby tree. When all the meat finishes cooking, he leaves one leg out for them to eat and hangs the rest of the meat in a tree tall and far enough away that it shouldn't attract any unwanted creatures. While he does this, Sangza cuts the meat off the leg and mixes it with the onion and chives, to give it more flavor. Theon returns and sits down beside her. She can see him more clearly in the firelight and sees a slight purple mark under his eye. One that matched her own from not that long ago. I did that, she thinks, I did that to him. She had no idea she was capable of such horrors. Theon sees her looking at him and shakes his head. It's not the same, he tells her. You didn't hit me with the intention of hurting me. But I hurt you all the same, she replies glumly. Believe me, princess, that was one of the softest slaps I have ever received. Rob has hit me harder countless times in the training yard. I really didn't mean to, she tells him honestly. I know. I'm really sorry. I know that too. They finish the rest of their meal in silence. When they are done, Theon lays down next to the fire, and without thinking, Sangza goes and lays right beside him, her arm touching his. She had forgotten that last night was a rare occasion. They were playing a part, only pretending to be husband and wife. But here in the real world, they weren't that. They weren't even friends. Sangza would like to think that they were, especially now, after all that had happened, but she wasn't so sure that he would agree. Sorry, Sangza goes to scoot away. I don't know what I was thinking, It's okay. He tells her. He lays his arm out for her to use as a pillow and motions for her to come back beside him. Slowly, she does, and without any effort she settles into his side, feeling almost as comfortable as she did the night before. Impossible, she thinks. She had attributed last night's good sleep to the soft bed, but perhaps it was not the bed so much as the man beside her. Regardless of what Rob wants, Theon starts. Sangza looks up at him and he continues. I'll stay with you. If he wants me to join him wherever he is, I'll go and you'll come with me. If he wants you to go home to Winterfell, I will be the one to bring you there. His promise warms her heart, and as Sangza looks up at him, she notices the fire has given his face a beautiful golden glow. Not golden like Joffrey. Joffrey was merely disguised as gold, the faked quick to tarnish when any one thing didn't go his way. No. The gold cast over Theon makes him look brave. And gentle and strong. Sangza wonders where she's heard that before but is too tired to remember, the safety of Theon's arms around her making her feel sleepy and content both at once. Thank you, she whispers, before drifting off to sleep. Notes. Hi guys. I hope everyone had a great day. Please let me know your thoughts on this chapter. I'm still deciding if I want to have them get to Riverrun in the next chapter or if I want to delay it a little longer. Let me know what you think. Chapter 5, Riverrun Reunion. Summary. Theon and Sangza arrive in Riverrun. Notes. See the end of the chapter for notes. Chapter text. Over the next few days, they make great progress towards Riverrun. They leave early in the morning, travel until an hour before sunset, set up camp, gather and cook dinner, and go to sleep, before waking early the next morning and starting the process over again. It's a routine very similar to the one they had prior to Stony September. The only difference is that now each night they drift closer and closer to each other as they sleep. Theon's not exactly sure what it all means, but he does know he shouldn't be allowing it to happen. Sangza is a lady. A princess. She's Lord Stark's daughter, and he is only a ward. He knows he cannot call himself heir to the Iron Islands anymore. While he has been unable to hear any news of what's been going on in both Pike and Winterfell, Theon knows that by now Balon would have sent Asher to lead an attack. He knows that by now, they would have figured out that Theon is not on their side. He knows that now Balon has officially disowned him, if he hadn't already. He is nothing now. With Lord Stark dead, he is no longer his ward. No longer prince or heir to the Iron Islands. He's not a knight. He's of no importance. Certainly not important enough for Princess Sansa Stark of Winterfell. And yet, he cannot help but enjoy their time together. At night he holds her closer than any woman he had ever had back at Winterfell, and yet that's all he's done. He holds her every night without doing anything more. And it's not that he doesn't want to. He would like nothing more than to take her, to make her his. But Rob would never forgive him, and there are more pressing matters at hand. And, most importantly, Princess Sansa Stark of Winterfell deserves better. Better than him. They had been following the Red Fork River for nearly 3 days now, and so Theon was fairly certain they should get to Riverrun before nightfall. He tells Sansa as much. "What do you think they are like?" she asks. Clarifying, "My family." "You would know better than I reckon." He answers her. "You've visited them before, right?" He was almost certain all the Stark children had been to Riverrun a handful of times, with the exception maybe, of Little Rickon. "Why yes, of course, but it's been many years. The last time I was there I think I was only 9 or 10 years old. I'll be turning 15 this year. I imagine they'll be more or less the same. Maybe. It's only, I feel a world different from how I was at 10. True. But family is very important to the Tullys. If anything, I'm the one who should be worried. Say they didn't get my raven. Or that Robb didn't. For all I know, people could think I betrayed the Starks. The Tullys may threaten my life for that." He joked. "I won't let them." Sansa is quick to say, her tone all serious. "I would hope not," Theon says, determined to make her smile. "After all I've done to save you, it would be a shame for you to let them kill your knight in shining armor. What would they say in the songs about us?" Sansa elbows him in the stomach, and he chuckles. She giggles lightly too, and he smiles, satisfied. "I'm serious, Theon. And I appreciate it, Princess." They don't talk much for the rest of the ride, but they both can't seem to stop smiling either. As they enter the town surrounding Riverrun, they attract the eyes of many villagers. In haste, Sansa pulls up the hood of Theon's cloak she still wears, for she has yet to finish her own, but she's not quick enough. No one would miss her Tully coloring, especially not here, and she can hear many people whispering and staring and pointing as they ride along, making her nervous. "Just relax," Theon whispers, his lips to her ear. She shivers despite herself. "We're almost there. No one can get to you now." Sansa nods against his chest but is still apprehensive. Sensing this, Theon nudges Max to move faster. They get close enough to the front of the castle and find that the front gate has been left open. Taking this as a good sign, Theon nudges Max once again to continue onward. Standing at the front of the castle doors are 3 men. "The middle one's my grandfather," Hoster Sansa whispers to him. "To his left is his brother, Brynden the Blackfish, and to his right is my uncle, Ed Muir." Theon nods, not that she can see it. They ride up to about 10 steps away from them. Then Theon gets off Max, before helping Sansa down. Upon setting her down to the ground, he means to let go of her waist, but he hasn't let go for long before she takes hold of his arm. Theon smiles at her reassuringly, before leading her over to her 3 relatives. Upon reaching them, Sansa pulls down her hood, smiling sweetly at the men in front of her. "Grandfather," she says, happily. "Sweet Sansa," he says back. "Come give me a hug." Sansa walks over to her grandfather but doesn't let go of Theon's arm as she does, and therefore drags him along with her. She lets go of him to hug her grandfather, and then her uncle, and then goes to hug the Blackfish but hesitates, for the man looks uninterested in a hug. Deciding against it, she goes back to grabbing Theon's arm, introducing him. "This is Theon Greyjoy, grandfather. He is Robb's best friend and father's former ward. He's the one who rescued me. He's also the one who's the son of the man who went and attacked your home," the Blackfish said harshly. "Nonsense, nonsense," Hoster said, before tension could build any further. "Clearly, we have much to discuss. But all in good time. You must be tired from the journey." "Yes, sweeterling." He asks Sansa. "A little, grandfather," she replies. "Well then, Ed Muir, please escort Sansa and the Greyjoy boy to their rooms. They can freshen up and rest before dinner. Brynden, take their horse to the stables and I'll go make sure that the feast is in order." Hoster orders the men about, and then turns back to Sansa, smiling fondly at her. "Rest up, dear. You're safe now." With that, Ed Muir leads Sansa and Theon inside the castle. The entire walk to their rooms, Sansa won't let go of Theon's arm, scared to believe she might actually be safe now. Their rooms are next to each other, at the start of what appears to be just a hall of bedchambers. Here you are, Edmure tells them, pointing to the two doors. Sangza, you're on the left, and he motions to Theon, he's on the right. All of these other rooms are empty, except for Uncle Brendan's, which is at the end of the hall. My father and I are each on the other sides of the castle. You can both wash up now. Servants were told to start up baths upon your arrival, and they should have laid out some fresh clothes as well. Thank you, uncle. Sangza tells him sweetly, smiling up at him. Of course, he tells her, smiling back. Someone will come to get you in a couple of hours when it's time for dinner. Okay. With that, Edmure looks at Sangza, then to Theon, nods, and walks off. Sangza looks over at Theon, only to find him looking at her as well. It doesn't feel real, she tells him. Theon smiles at her. Well, it is. I promised I'd get you here, princess. Did I not? You did, Sangza agrees. Theon is about to say something else, when he shakes his head, starting over. I'll see you in a couple of hours. He tells her and then steps into his room. Disappointed, though she's not sure why, Sangza stands outside a moment longer, before walking into her own room. Her room is simple, but pleasant. A wooden dresser and vanity, a matching desk and chair in one corner, and a small wooden bed frame with a blue quilt at the center of the room. There's a wardrobe at the back wall, and when Sangza opens it, she finds several different dresses hanging, and a few pairs of slippers in a row at the bottom. Overwhelmed with the number of outfit options, Sangza decides to take a bath first, before deciding what to wear. She scrubs her body and arm clean, with a soap that smells of lavender. After she dries off, she walks back over to the wardrobe to look at its content fully. There has to be at least 20 dresses, she thinks. They all look to be slightly different sizes, and she's not sure which ones will fit. She grabs a magenta dress, with long sleeves and a full neck, 2 ruffles at the bottom of the skirt, and she holds it up to herself in the vanity mirror. Pretty, she thinks, but goes to grab another one instead, because she can. The next one she grabs is a deep, tully blue. It has mid-length sleeves that flare out at the elbow, a square neckline, a red lace trimming the neckline and skirt, and the tully trout embroidered in a line at the bottom of the skirt. She tries it on and is happy to find it's a perfect fit. Next, she goes and sits at the vanity. She combs her hair through and then pulls the top half back and braids it, tying it off with a red ribbon that was laid out on the vanity. She examines herself in the mirror and is pleased with the result. Figuring she still has a little time before dinner, she lays down on the bed and dozes off. She wakes up minutes later to a knock on her door. Notes. A bit of a shorter chapter than usual. I know. I'm sorry, but this felt like a good cliffhanger to leave it on. Please let me know your thoughts in the comments. I hope everyone is having a great day. Chapter 6, I Care About You. Summary. Theon and Sangza discuss latest word from Rob, as well as other things. Notes. See the end of the chapter for notes. Chapter text. Sangza answers the door to find Theon standing there, slightly off to the side. He's freshly clean, and freshly shaven too. He's quite handsome, Sangza thinks to herself. He's got a bluish-green tunic on, that really brings out the sea green of his eyes. She finds it impossible to look away from them. That is, until the servant standing directly in front of her doorway clears his throat expectantly. Sangza hadn't seen him until now. Forgive me, my lady, the servant says, but it is time to escort you to dinner. Why yes, of course, Sangza answers shyly. Sorry about that. The servant just nods and begins to walk away, leading them to the great hall. Theon offers her his arm and she takes it, letting him lead her along. They're almost there when he leans in close to her, and whispers in her ear, "You look pretty." He's so close Sangza can smell him. He smells clean, of sandalwood, and something sweet too. Maybe honey. Sangza looks up at him, a blush rising to her cheeks, realizing he caught her staring when he gave her the compliment. Unsure of what to say, Sangza simply looked back forward, thankful to see they had arrived at the great hall. They enter and take their seats at the head of the room. Seated at a long table with her grandfather, uncle, and great-uncle, Sangza sits on the far right end next to Edmure, while Theon sits on the other end next to Brendan. The rest of the room is filled with all others invited to join the feast, celebrating the arrival of Sansa. It reminds her of the feast her mother had held in Winterfell, upon the arrival of the late King Robert and his family. She shivers, remembering Joffrey sitting across from her and smiling charmingly. Oh, what a fool I had been, she thinks. What's the news with Robb? Theon is quick to ask. He did receive my messages, did he not? He looks to Hoster, but it is Brynden who answers. As far as we know, he got your raven, that said that your father was planning to siege Winterfell, and he turned right around, heading back north as fast as he could. He sent a raven to us about a week and a half ago, asking us to keep him informed on what news spreads this way, and to have reinforcements ready, should he need more help in Winterfell or should he plan to go back south for his sisters. Brynden looks pointedly at Sansa. We got your raven 4 days ago, saying that you were to bring the princess here, and sent word back to him telling him as much and that we will await further instruction from him. He should have gotten my second raven as well. Theon thought out loud. Saying that I would bring Sansa here. I told him to send me word to Riverrun as well, telling how the siege went and what to do next. We should hear from him again in a matter of days. Hoster agrees, interjecting himself until the conversation. Until then, my sweet granddaughter will be safe here. Hoster reaches across and squeezes Sansa's hand. He looks over to Theon. And you will be rewarded for your bravery and loyalty. Not only did you get Sansa out of that wretched King Joffrey's grasp, but you stayed loyal to the Starks over your own family. I'm sure my grandson will reward you as well, but I shall offer you a prize of my own. That's really not necessary, my lord. Nonsense. You'll take the finest horse from my stable. No question about it. But Theon already has a horse. Sansa speaks up. The one we rode here and his own back in Winterfell. Well, actually I left my horse behind when I boarded a ship to Pike, Theon tells her. But what about Max? Sansa asks sadly. You had me name him for you, are you really going to just toss him aside? Theon looks at her sweetly, his eyes softening, then back to Hoster. The princess is right, the horse I have now has served me quite well. Perhaps the princess can pick out a horse of her own from your stable. And she can keep the horse instead. How generous. Hoster admires. Yes. Sansa, I'll have someone take you to the stable in the morning so that you may pick out a horse. Thank you, grandfather. Sansa says, looking back down at her plate. The rest of dinner goes by fairly quickly. Sansa listens while Uncle Edmure tells her about the people of Riverrun, and Hoster, Brynden and Theon discuss the war effort. By the time dinner is done, Sansa is quite ready to retire to her chamber. Sansa excuses herself, kissing her grandfather and uncle on the cheek goodnight, and then gets up to walk back to her room. Theon excuses himself as well, saying he'd also like to retire and will escort her back. Taking his arm once again, she lets him lead her away, not talking again until they're back in the hallway. Do you think Winterfell's okay? That Robb was able to get there in time to stop the siege? She asks Theon. I'm sure of it, Theon tells her. We'll hear from him in a few days. Last time I was with him, the young wolf had remained undefeated. I imagine that is still the case. The Iron Islands aren't exactly known for their successful rebellions, you know. I suppose. They reach their doors and Theon turns to her. There's no need to worry, princess. It's safe to say your luck has turned. Robb will defeat my family and Winterfell will be safe for you once again. But what about the Lannisters? Sansa asks, biting her lip worriedly. Robb was marching south to save you and avenge your father. Now that you're safe, I'm sure he still wants his vengeance, but things have changed. It might be smarter for him to stay in Winterfell and let the fight come to him. The Starks always fight better within their home. Okay, Sansa concedes. She goes to walk into her room, but stops and turns back around, walking towards Theon and pulling him into a hug. He seems to hesitate at first, before returning the hug in earnest. Thank you for everything. She tells him, still wrapped up in his arms. She pulls back slightly, and kisses his cheek. She hears his breath catch, she pulls back again and finds him staring intently at her. His eyes look deep into hers before drifting down to her lips, and then back up again. His arms tighten around her waist. He's going to kiss me, she thinks. She expected the thought to frighten her, considering the last person she had kissed had been Joffrey, but it doesn't. Instead the thought excites her. She looks down to his lips, and then back up to his eyes expectantly. He doesn't do anything though. He doesn't even move. Feeling bold, Sansa decides to lean in herself. Closing her eyes, she stands up on her tiptoes. Her face is a mere inch from his when she feels him pull back. Theon struggles to say. Good night, Sansa. Sleep well. He lets go of her so quickly she almost falls. He steadies her, and then rushes to his room, closing the door behind him and leaving Sansa standing out in the hall all alone. Sansa puts her nightgown on, feeling embarrassed by whatever just happened. What did just happen? She thinks. She sits in front of the vanity, brushing her hair out, as she runs back through the evening in mind. He said I looked pretty. And he kept looking at me with that weird look in his eye. She had thought that maybe, it might have meant something. He had been so kind to her, so sweet and endearing. And he had told her that he wanted to change his old habits. That didn't necessarily mean he wanted to get married and settle down. Sansa knew this, but she hadn't realized she had hoped it to mean something until just now. Until that moment in the hallway, when she thought he might kiss her. She had known she had grown to care more for Theon in their time together. But seeing him tonight, hearing him call her pretty and smile at her, reassure her every little worry, Sansa knew that she more than cared for him. She wasn't sure if it was love. She didn't think she was capable of loving anyone after what Joffrey did to her. But she knew she cared for him. And was sad to discover that he didn't care for her. He had seemed like he wanted to kiss her, but he didn't, and Sansa took that to mean he wasn't interested. She should be grateful. The old Theon would have seen the opportunity and taken it. He would have kissed her, and probably done more, with no regard for her feelings. She should be glad he doesn't want to take advantage of her. But she can't help but feel sad that he's not interested. She chalks it up to painting a too pretty picture in her head. He came in, like a knight on a white horse, and rescued her. He reignited all her old childhood fantasies, of marrying a handsome knight, and living happily ever after. But those were foolish hopes, a child's fantasy. Before allowing herself to get lost deeper in her thoughts, she curls up in bed, hoping to soon fall into a restful sleep. Sleep, however, doesn't come. She tosses and turns for an hour, unable to get comfortable, hating that she has to be alone. She's the safest she's been in the longest time, here within the walls of Riverrun, and yet, she can't relax. She thinks of Theon, on the other side of the wall, wondering what he's doing. If, unlike her, he was able to fall fast asleep. She wishes he was with her now. She'd sleep much better if he was. Before she can stop herself, she climbs out of bed and walks across her room. Her legs leading her on their own accord, out her room and to the front of his door. She goes to knock and stops herself. What am I doing? She thinks. She knocks before she can talk herself out of it. Moments later, she hears the light sound of footsteps. Theon answers the door, opening it halfway. Sansa, he asks. What are you doing up? She's distracted momentarily by his lack of a shirt. She feels her mouth go dry, and she looks back to his face, trying to speak. I couldn't sleep, she tells him helplessly. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have woken you, I just... It's okay. I wasn't asleep. He looks at her expectantly, like he thinks she'll say more. She doesn't though, she just stands there feeling heat rise to her cheeks. Theon takes a breath and then opens his door wider, motioning her to come inside. Sansa steps forward and he closes the door behind her. She looks around, noticing his room is identical to hers. Same furniture, only a brown and red quilt as opposed to her blue one. She stops looking when she realizes he may catch her staring at the bed. She turns around and gasps when she sees him standing barely a foot from her. He's so close and yet she wishes he was closer. She takes a step forward, closing the space between them, and places her hands on his chest. Sansa, he chides, trying to pull away. She doesn't let him. She grabs his hands and wraps them around her waist, wondering where this streak of boldness has come from. Why won't you kiss me? She asks him, her voice small. He seems utterly shocked at this question, at a complete loss for words. I see the way you look at me. I know you want to kiss me. Or, well, I thought I did. I guess. I do, he tells her, before he can stop himself. A true smile breaks out on her face. She leans forward, but he stops her once again. A firm but gentle hand on her cheek keeping her in place. Her smile falls. We can't, he tells her. His own frown covering his face. Why not? She asks, embarrassed to feel tears forming in her eyes. Theon wipes the tears away. You deserve better. What does that mean? Sansa asks, almost angry. What could he possibly mean by that? She thinks. You're a princess, he reminds her, like it's obvious. I'm nothing. No longer heir to the Iron Islands. I'm no longer even your father's ward. I have no title, and I'm not a knight. You're my knight. She tells him. Theon rolls his eyes at her, but she shakes her head, silently begging him to agree. You are. You saved me. You went out of your way to save me when no one else did. Not even Rob. You did that, on your own. Rob would have saved you if he could. That's not the point. I know he would have. But he didn't. You did. I have nothing to offer you. I don't care about your titles. She interrupts him. Or lack thereof. I care about you. Rising on her tiptoes, she presses her lips to his. He stands still. Rigid. She pulls back. I care about you. She tells him again. Pressing her lips to his again and again, repeating the phrase over and over between kisses, regardless of the fact that he has yet to kiss her back. I care about you. I care about you. I care about you. After the 5th time she says it, he finally gives in. Kissing her back in earnest. He wraps his arms more securely around her waist and pulls her to his chest. They stay like that for a minute, pressing small, loving kisses to each other's lips. Sansa giggles against his lips, pure happiness radiating off her, and he takes this opportunity to slip her his tongue, deepening the kiss. She's never been kissed like this before, and finds it strange though not at all unpleasant. She's unsure of what to do, and takes to following his lead, mimicking his movements with her own tongue. She accidentally bites down on his lips lightly, and is about to apologize, when a strangled sound leaves his throat. He picks her up and wraps her legs around him. Walking forward a few steps and then laying her on the bed. He climbs on top of her and begins to kiss her with more passion than she thought possible. She finds it impossible to think straight, wrapped up in his arms and kiss earth-shattering kisses. They stay like this for several minutes, until Theon pulls back. He's out of breath, though not nearly as much as she is. You stopped? She asks, worried she did something wrong. You need to rest, he tells her sweetly, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. Sansa's about to protest when he puts a finger to her lips. Don't worry, princess. I'll kiss you again later. He winks at her, a teasing expression on his face. The expression hardens when she presses a kiss to his finger. Sansa sits up slightly and Theon climbs off her. She pulls back the covers and crawls under them. Moments later Theon is under the covers as well, a respectable distance from her considering the size of the bed. He pulls her to him and she lays against him, half her body draped across his chest. He kisses her forehead once, then twice, and then a third time for good measure. Good night, Theon, she tells him tiredly, snuggling deeper into him. Good night, princess, he replies. She's so close to sleep she almost misses the last thing he says, barely more than a whisper. I care about you too. Notes. Hi guys. I hope everyone is having a great day. Please let me know what you thought of this chapter. I, for one, was really excited to write it. Also shout out to FayHunter78, who helped me work through some of the plot points and dilemmas I was contemplating for the later chapters. Chapter 7, Little Moments of Happiness. Notes. See the end of the chapter for notes. Chapter text. Sansa wakes up confused. She's no longer in Theon's bed, but her own, and Theon is not beside her. She briefly wonders if last night's events were nothing more than a dream, and she finds her heart aching at the thought. She rolls to her side and spots a folded up piece of paper on the pillow next to her. She grabs it and reads. I brought you back to your room before anyone would see. I hope you slept well. I'll see you later. XXXT. Sangza smiles to herself. He carried me back here, she thinks. Annoyed with herself for feeling giddy at the thought. She climbs out of bed and gets ready for the day. She puts on a pale pink dress, embroidered with different shades of pink roses along the bodice, skirt, and sleeves. She then twists her hair into a half up half down style. Looking out the window, she sees that it's still early morning. She won't be expected at breakfast for at least another hour or so. She takes out her sewing, and begins to work on finishing up her cloak. She had only made slight progress on it so far, having not been able to work on it much with how long she and Theon traveled each day. But now she'll have more time than she knows what to do with, and smiles at the thought that it will be finished soon. I may even have time to embroider a design along the edges. She thinks to herself excitedly. She works on the cloak until she hears a servant knock on her door, collecting her for breakfast. She steps out into the hallway and looks around. Where's the Lord Greyjoy? She asks. He's been out in the training yard since early morning, the servant tells her. The Blackfish is with him. I don't think they'll be at breakfast this morning. Oh, Sangza says, trying to not sound too disappointed. Sangza finds breakfast incredibly dull without Theon there. She still engages in conversation with her grandfather and uncle, but can't seem to focus too entirely on it. Her gaze keeps drifting to the door, hoping to see him walk through and join her. After breakfast she leaves her grandfather and uncle to their daily duties, and goes to the stable with one of the stable hands to pick out a horse. She was surprised to find that her grandfather had quite a collection of horses. There were 20 lined up in stalls just for her to choose from. She settled on one with a coat that matched the color of Arya's hair. Oh, how I miss her. She thinks. She tells the stable hand that this is the one and he nods at her, before going off to get all the horses' feed ready. She pets her new horse, trying to think of a name for him but not being able to. She decides to think of one later, and then walks down to the other end of the stable, where Max resides in his own stall, and she gives him some pets too. On her way back to her room, she makes a point to stop by the training yard, only to find that neither Theon nor her great-uncle are there. She sighs, disappointed, and then goes back to her room to work on her sewing once more. She works on it for hours, going at a steady pace and making great progress. At some point in the day, a servant comes by and brings her sandwiches and tea. She thanks her, but doesn't stop to eat, finding herself too wrapped up in her stitches. Another couple of hours later, she hears a knock at her door. Come in, she calls out. She hears the door open, and footsteps of someone walking in, but doesn't look up from her sewing. I'm not quite ready for dinner yet, she says. Give me a moment and I'll be ready shortly. Dinner is still hours away, Theon tells her, walking closer to her. Theon! Sangza exclaims. She's surprised, for she thought it was someone coming to collect her. She stands up from her chair, letting the cloak fall to the floor, and jumps into his arms. Theon catches her enthusiastically and spins her in his arms. Once. Twice. 3 times. He then sets her back on the floor. Where have you been? She admonishes him. You saw my note, didn't you? He asks, confused. Yes. But, you said you'd see me later, and then weren't at breakfast. I think right now still classifies as later, he tells her. She punches his arm lightly, and he feigns being wounded, smiling at her. I just wanted to get some training in, he told her. It's been a while since I practiced. You weren't in the training yard. Stalking me now, huh, princess? He teases. A blush rises to her cheeks and he smiles again, satisfied. I was in the early morning, but then I went to the woods for some archery practice. I find it's more fun that way. Oh, is all she replies. And what have you been up to today? He asks, stealing the chair she had previously been sitting in. I had breakfast with grandfather and uncle, picked out my horse, and then spent the rest of the day sewing. She points down to the cloak at his feet, walking over to pick it up. Before she is able to, however, he pulls her into his lap, so that she's sitting with her back to his chest. "And what did you name this horse?" he asks her. He turns slightly and begins pressing sweet, distracting kisses to her neck. Sangza finds it hard to focus as he kisses her, leaning further back against him and sighing contentedly. "Home?" he asks again. I didn't name him." "Not yet." She tells him breathlessly. "I see," he muses, sucking on her skin. He continues to kiss her gently, before switching it up and using his teeth and tongue. Sangza gasps, and rocks back against him, feeling him hard pressed against her. He groans against her neck. He presses a few more gentle kisses to her skin and takes a deep breath, inhaling her scent. He stands up, lifting her with him, and turns around, setting her back in the chair. Sangza's about to protest when he leans forward and presses a kiss to her lips. She deepens the kiss, and he lets her, but a minute later he pulls away. Not wanting to stop, Sangza leans forward and captures his lips again. He kisses her another minute, and then stands up, forcing himself to take a step back. "We don't want to get caught," he tells her. "I need to bathe. I'll see you at dinner." "No," Sangza tells him. "Come back here when you're done. You can sit with me, work on your whittling while I sew." He gives her a pointed look. "I'll be perfectly well behaved. I promise." Theon smiles at her. "Very well," he agrees. He steps forward and presses a kiss to her ear, before whispering, "But I can't promise I'll be." He pulls back and winks at her, and then walks back out her room and into his own. Minutes later, Sangza is sitting in her chair, working on the finishing stitches of her cloak, sewing the deer pelt Theon had saved for her days ago to the shoulders of the cloak as well as the hood. Theon sits next to her, in his own chair, whittling a different piece of wood than he had originally started with. He's nearly finished with it, and it looks to be in the shape of a flower. A tulip, maybe. Or a rose. Sangza knows it's for her, whatever it is, and so she doesn't ask him about it, for fear he'll get embarrassed and tuck it away. They don't talk, they simply sit in comfortable silence, each stealing glances at the other here and there. When it's time, they go to dinner. They still are placed on opposite ends of the table, and Sangza can feel him stare at her the entire time, even afterward, as she socializes with her family and the crowd. When it's late enough, Sangza excuses herself for bed and Theon does as well, using the same excuse as the night before, saying he'll escort her back to her room. When they get to their doors, however, he follows her into her room. He turns his back to her while she changes into her nightgown, but doesn't hold the same modesty for himself, taking off his shirt and striping down to his underclothes as she watches. They climb into bed, and he kisses her a while, lulling her into a contented state of rest while also keeping her wide awake. Eventually he stops, and pulls her into his side, wrapping one of his strong arms around her. He kisses her forehead and tells her good night, and she does the same. They both fall asleep soon after, with smiles on their faces. Notes. Hi guys. This was sort of a filler chapter, to kill time while they await word from Rob. That being said, I hope you enjoyed it, and that everyone had a great day. Please leave your thoughts in the comments. Chapter 8, The Return to Winterfell. Notes. See the end of the chapter for notes. Chapter text. 2 days later, a raven brought the long-awaited word from Rob. Hoster had said the raven arrived in the early morning, as he showed the still-sealed parchment to the 4 others in the room with him. To keep the information contained, they had chosen to break their fast in the confines of a much smaller room, with only Hoster, Edmure, Brynden, Theon, and Sangza in attendance. Hoster hands the parchment to Edmure, who opens it and begins to read it aloud. Dear grandfather and family. I hope this letter finds you well, and that my dear sister has been reunited with you all by now. Balon Greyjoy's siege was a failure. He attacked us not only 5 days ago, and within 3 days they were forced to retreat. Balon is dead. I am in the middle of striking up a deal with his only daughter, Asha, and would hope that Theon comes to join me in Winterfell as soon as possible, for Asha is proving to be nearly as stubborn as Balon was. Theon can bring my sister back with him, assuming they have made it to Riverrun. If they haven't, please send them to Winterfell as soon as they arrive, for I fear negotiations with the Iron Islands are paramount, and my mother worries greatly for her daughter. If my sister is there, please tell her I love her and can't wait for her to return home. Mother, the boys, and the rest of Winterfell are eager as well. Best regards. Robb Stark. Ed Muir finished reading, and they all stood quietly for a moment taking the entirety of the letter in. Sansa looked to Theon, and he looked to her. She was smiling, she couldn't help it, she was finally able to go home. Theon, however, wasn't smiling. He appeared to be lost in thought. How soon do you plan to leave? Hoster asks Theon. Theon looks at him, and says I'd like to leave today. Within the hour if possible. You go pack up your things. Hoster tells him, and Sansa too. I'll have someone ready your horses and another pack up some provisions and the two of you will be on your way soon. Thank you, Theon says. He stands up and leaves the room at that, seemingly forgetting all about Sansa. Sansa stands up, looking at her grandfather. Sweet girl, he tells her, cupping her cheek affectionately. It was so lovely to see you these few days. Now go on and pack up your things so you may return home. I'll see you off when it's time. Thank you, grandfather, she tells him. She gives him a quick hug and then scurries off to her room. It doesn't take Sansa long to pack. She changes her dress to the green one Theon had bought for her in Stony September, as it is the most fitting for a long journey. She packs away the blue and red dress she had already worn, and the pink one embroidered with roses. She packs 2 additional dresses, one grey and one a light blue. Lastly, she packs the purple dress she was working on, with the fabric Theon had also bought for her, and her sewing supplies. She ties up her bag and pulls on her recently finished cloak. She had yet to embroider a design on it yet, but she planned to do that when she got home. She walked out her door and met up with Theon as he walked out of his. He too had his cloak on and his bag was slung over one shoulder. Here, he said, reaching for and then taking her bag from her, slinging it over his other shoulder. Thank you, she tells him sweetly, grateful to see him smile back at her genuinely. They walk outside and find Max and her horse, still without a name, saddled up and ready to go, with a pack of provisions tied to each. Her grandfather, uncle, and great-uncle all stand nearby the horses, ready to say goodbye. Theon goes to tie their bags onto their horses and so Sansa walks over to her family. Her grandfather engulfs her in a hug, and she melts into him, sadly thinking that she doesn't know when she'll see him next. Next she hugs her uncle. His hug is not nearly as affectionate as her grandfather's, but it's still sturdy and comforting. She looks to her great-uncle, who holds out his arms for her to walk into. She does, and is surprised to find great comfort in his embrace. She walks over to her horse, and Theon goes towards her, about to lift her up, when Ed Muir beats him to it and settles her in the saddle. Sansa tries to hide her disappointment. Safe travels, Ed Muir tells her. Write to us when you get home so we know you make it safely. Yes, of course. She smiles at him. Theon climbs up on Max and nudges him forward, into a walk. Sansa does the same and they begin to slowly make their way from Riverrun. As they exit the gate, Sansa turns around and waves to her family, who wave back to her. The journey to Winterfell is much smoother than the journey to Riverrun. They follow the same routine they did, traveling during the day and camping at night. But the journey is much nicer too, because this time it's filled with longing glances and stolen kisses. Sansa finds herself very much enjoying the trip home. It doesn't feel like long before they make it back to Winterfell, though in reality it does take a couple of weeks. They arrive in the evening, just before sunset. Theon and Sansa spot the walls of Winterfell, and simultaneously both pick up their horses' gates. They look over and smile at each other, and Sansa giggles, unable to contain herself. Theon starts laughing too. Sansa! They hear a little voice yell. Robb! They're back. Sansa and Theon are back. They look over and see little Rickon running towards them from the gate. Only he's not so little anymore, now that he's almost 8. Rickon! Sansa calls back excitedly. She speeds up her horse and moments later she sees Robb appear at the gate too, running towards her. He catches up with Rickon quickly, and picks him up and carries him as he runs towards her. They reach each other and Sansa jumps from her horse, falling to the ground. Robb sets Rickon down and picks her up, lifting her in his arms and spinning her around, the both of them laughing happily. I'm so happy you're here. Robb tells her. And that you're safe now. Theon catches up to them and dismounts Max, only to be tackled by Rookon the moment his feet hit the ground. Theon picks the boy up and roughhouses with him lightly, happy to see him. Theon! Rookon yells, even though he's right there with him. I'm so happy you're back. I missed you. I missed you too, Rookon, Theon tells him. Did you miss me? Sansa asks Rookon. I missed you the mostest. Rookon tells her. Jumping from Theon's arms to hers. Sansa smiles happily and hugs him tight against her. Did you miss me? Theon jokingly asks Robb, turning to him. Robb tells him, pulling him in for a hug. What you did for me, Robb continues. Not just warning me about your father, but bringing Sansa back, too. I hope you know, we're brothers for life. Robb pulls away from him and nods, so Theon can see how serious he is. Theon nods at him too, smiling. Brothers for life, he agrees. Robb then turns to Sansa and Rookon, who are now chatting to each other quietly about who knows what. Rookon's probably already talking her ear off. Come inside, Robb tells them. Mother and Bran are waiting for you. Sansa smiles at the thought. She takes Robb's offered arm, and he leads her inside, Theon and Rookon a step behind them. Sansa, her mother exclaims the second she sees her. Catelyn rushes over to her and engulfs her in a hug. Sansa hugs her mother back tightly, silently crying tears of joy and relief into her mother's shoulder. Bran is propped up on a chair. Sansa looks over to him and sees him smiling sweetly, as Theon talks to him. Her mother releases her and Sansa walks quick steps to Bran, leaning down and wrapping her arms around him. I missed you, little brother. She tells him. I missed you, too. Sansa had been whisked away by her mother and younger brothers. It seemed that none of them wanted to let her out of their sight. Bran wouldn't stop looking at her, her mother wouldn't stop fussing over her, and little Rookon wouldn't let go of her hand. After they all left the room, Robb had Theon accompany him to his solar, saying he had important matters to discuss. Robb was seeming to struggle with what to say, something Theon knew never really happened when Robb was talking with him. He must have some bad news. I made a deal with your sister, Robb says, finally. I figured as much, Theon told him. I didn't see her here, and we may not be like you and Sansa, but I figured she'd be outside to greet me if she was still in Winterfell. What agreement did you two come to? You're not going to like it. That's always reassuring to hear. Theon jokes. I presented her the same deal I had originally presented to your father. The North would recognize the Iron Islands as an independent kingdom, as long as they agree to aid us should we need it. And she agreed to it. Yes. Robb says, pausing before saying, on the condition that I recognize her as the rightful ruler, not you. Oh, Theon says. Asha would be a better ruler, Theon knew this. Not only did the Iron Islands respect her, but she was more fit to rule. Theon could see himself as a lord of a great house, but not as king. He just didn't think that Robb would agree with that assessment. It hurt that he did. There's more, Robb tells him. I'm sorry. I just got word yesterday from my spies in Essos. It appears the Targaryen girl has been poisoned and killed. Her 3 dragons have all gone missing. That seems a little too good to be true, don't you think? Theon asks. He had heard many stories of the Targaryens on the other side of the world. A lot of stories too, about her 3 baby dragons. It seemed foolish to think they could be killed with simple poison. Time will tell, I suppose. We need to keep it quiet though. Can't be spreading rumors as big as that should they prove false. Theon agrees. So what'll you do next? I don't know. My bannermen won't want to march back south with me, not now that I've let them all come back north to defend Winterfell. And it seems foolish to go all the way back there just to kill Joffrey. I plan to make a deal with Stannis Baratheon. I have no desire to rule all 7 kingdoms, but being king in the north is really no different than being warden of the north. I am to go to him and offer to support his efforts against Joffrey, should he agree that when it's done the north and the Iron Islands remain independent kingdoms of their own. Do you think he'll go for it? Theon asks. I don't know. But father saw him as the rightful heir and I'm inclined to agree. When do you leave? Day after tomorrow. I need to meet with Roose Bolton tomorrow. Apparently he has matters he would like to discuss before he heads back to the Dread Fort. Rob tells him, rolling his eyes. I know I don't have much cause to ask this, considering how much you've done for me and how little I've returned the favor, but I was hoping you'd go with me, to Storm's End. Theon hesitates, thinking of Sansa, hating to leave her behind, remembering his promise that he wouldn't, but also his determination to keep her safe in Winterfell. I'll go with you, he tells Rob. Rob smiles at him. When we get back, we'll discuss your reward for saving the North as well as bringing Sansa home, Rob tells him. But for now, why don't you go wash up? You certainly smell like you've been on the road for days. Gee, thanks, Theon tells him sarcastically. But he leaves to do just that all the same. Later, just as he's getting out of his bath, he hears a light knock at the door. He wraps a towel around his waist, and calls out, "Just a minute." "It's me," Sansa whispers quietly. Theon crosses the room and pulls her inside in a matter of seconds. He hugs her tightly to him, already regretting the fact that he just agreed to leave her. Sansa hugs him back just as eagerly. "What have you been up to?" she asks him, even though they've only been apart less than 2 hours. "I was talking with Rob," he tells her. "My sister is now Queen of the Iron Islands. And the Dragon Girl is dead. But you didn't hear any of that from me." Sansa's face goes serious. He tweaks her nose in hopes of getting her to laugh. It works, but only a little. "But what about you? Don't you deserve to be king?" "I never could be, not really, especially not after betraying them, but really only Ashen knows I did that." He shrugs. "She'll get over it, just as I'll get over her replacing me. She's better fit to rule the Iron Islands, and this way I can stay north," Theon tells her, looking at her meaningfully. A smile of pure happiness breaks out on her face. "You'd never have to leave the north again," she tells him happily. She goes to kiss him, but he stops her, guilt churning in his stomach. About that he starts. "I told Rob I'd go with him to Storm's End. He plans to make a deal with Stannis." Sansa's smile immediately falters, turning into a frown. "And I'm going with you both?" she asks him, but she already knows the answer by the look on his face. "You just got back. I can't ask you to leave Winterfell again. And neither your mother or Rob will allow it. You're safer here." He tries to reason with her. "But you know I just want what's best for you. I'm sorry. I know I'm breaking the promise that I made, but there's still a war going on. Joffrey still rules from King's Landing. The sooner we go to Stannis, the sooner he's on the throne, the sooner I'll be able to be back here, with you. And I promise you, that I will never leave you again. I know my promises must mean very little now, but I will prove to you how true I mean it in time, if you'll let me." Sansa looks at him intently. She knows he means what he says, but she can't help but feel a little hurt. "Okay," she concedes. "But once this war's over I'm holding you to it." Theon kisses her cheek. Then again. Then her other one, again and again. "I expect nothing less," he tells her. "When this is all over I will never want to leave your side again. I don't want to now, even." Sansa smiles at him happily, and when she leans in to kiss him, this time he doesn't stop her. Notes. Hi guys. I hope you enjoyed the chapter. A couple of things about the plot going forward. For those curious, Rob doesn't mention Arya in his letter because Theon told him she went missing in the second raven he sent him. Also, this story is going to have a very Stark family-focused happy ending, and I plan to be killing off the rest of the kings involved in the War of the Five Kings, as well as Daenerys. I know that may upset some people, but I'm not trying to make this story too accurate or overly realistic, I'm just trying to write some cute Theonza. I hope you still choose to read and enjoy the story. Have a great day. Chapter 9, Making Plans. Notes. See the end of the chapter for notes. Chapter text. The next morning, Theon wakes early, and sneaks out of Sansa's room as quiet as a mouse. He goes to his own room, and dresses for the day, before heading out to the training yard to meet Rob and practice. Bran and Rickon are there too, and watch as Rob and Theon spar against one another. They both have improved immensely, yet Rob still remains better than him with a sword. Theon doesn't mind though, he's not jealous or angry about it like he used to be. Besides, he knows he's still much better than Rob when it comes to archery. They spar for a couple of hours, and then Rob goes off to get ready for his meeting with Roos. Theon practices his archery, but stops soon after when Rukan begs Theon to teach him. Theon gets him set up with a smaller bow, and helps him aim at the target. He gives him a few pointers on his first couple shots, and then lets him continue to practice. Theon looks over to Bran, who is looking off in the distance, lost in thought. "You can practice too," Theon tells him. Bran snaps out of it, whatever it was. "What? Archery? You can practice too." "No," Bran says sadly. "No, I can't." "Sure you can," Theon says. He looks back to Rukan, and tells him to go collect his arrows and not fire any more until he's back. Theon walks back inside and grabs a chair. He brings it outside and sets it in line with the target, about 20 feet away. Hodder, who had been standing off in the distance nearby, picks Bran up and carries him over, setting him down in the chair. Theon grabs another bow, and a quiver of arrows, handing them both to Bran. "I still don't think I can do it," Bran tells him, beginning to look off in the distance again. "You can," Theon tells him again. "Anchor yourself in the chair, just as you would your feet in the ground." Bran does this. "Good. Now aim, and shoot." Bran shots and hits the target, just outside the second center ring. "Woohoo!" Rukan cheers. "Bran, you hit the target." "Yeah," Bran says, smiling. "I did." Theon goes back to Rukan and helps him improve his form once again. He helps the boys for another hour, before Lady Catelyn comes outside, telling the boys they need to come inside for lessons. She smiles at Theon, something she's never done to him before, at least not directly. "You weren't at breakfast, Theon," she says. "I had the cook bring a plate of food to your room." Thank you. Thank you, Lady Stark." Theon stammers out. Catelyn smiles at him again and squeezes his arm, before taking Rukan's hand and leading him inside, Bran and Hodder following closely behind. Theon goes to his room and eats. He wonders where Sansa is and debates going to her room to look for her. He decides against it, figuring he'll for sure run into her later in the day, and not wanting to risk her getting in trouble by being caught with him. He finishes eating and begins to work on whittling another flower for Sansa. He had originally planned to only make her one, as a way to keep his hands busy and his mind less worried on their journey away from King's Landing. Since then, however, he's had much more time on his hands and has already made several flowers. He plans to make her a whole bouquet to give to her, knowing she'd like that sort of thing. "Maybe I'll ask Lady Catelyn for some paints," he thinks, "so that I can paint all the flowers different colors." He hears a light knock on the door and rushes to answer it. Forgetting his earlier worry about getting caught with Sansa and instead happy she's here. He opens the door, his smile turning to a look of surprise when it's Rob at the door instead of Sansa. "You look disappointed to see me," Rob jokes, walking into Theon's room. "Only a little," Theon jokes back, closing the door behind him. "What did Bolton want?" "He wanted me to send him to Storm's End, instead of myself going." "Why?" Theon asks, confused. He doesn't know much about the Boltons, but he knows they're not the selfless type. "What's in it for him?" "He said it's because the North needs me. That the king in the North just got back, and the princess too. That it'd be better for me to stay here. He also says he knows Stannis, and he's more likely to listen to him, a grown man, instead of me, who's still a boy." Rob says, emphasizing that last part. "Are you going to let him go instead?" "I don't know. I want to talk to Mayor Stillowin and Roderick first, as well as my mother, to see what they all think." "And yet you came to me first." "Yeah," Rob shrugs, laughing lightly, "I wanted to hear your opinion first. If you think I'm stupid for wanting to let him go instead." Theon looks to him, touched that he wanted to hear his thoughts. He shakes his head out, trying to clear it of any overflowing emotion. "Love has made me far too sentimental," he thinks. He looks back to Rob, who is looking at him expectantly. "I don't know," Theon shrugs. "I get why you don't want to go, you just got home not too long ago. And if Roose is right, that Stannis will be more receptive to him, then why waste time taking a trip there when you can just send him? But also, the question remains, do you trust him? If you do, this is a great show of that and should earn you a fair amount of respect from the Boltons as well as your other bannermen maybe. Considering Roose offered to go, and that you're not making him. That's what I was thinking too, Rob agreed. But I don't know if the others will agree. Only one way to find out. An hour later, Theon, Rob, Lady Caitlin, Mayor Stillowin, Roderick Castle, and even Sansa, Bran, and Rickon all sit in Rob's solar. Rob tells them of Roose's offer, and of his and Theon's thoughts on the matter, asking if anyone else thinks any differently. Mayor Stillowin and Lady Caitlin seem to be debating the subject with Rob, but whether they are for or against the idea, Theon's unsure. He's not listening, instead distracted, as he keeps stealing glances at Sansa. Sansa keeps looking at him too, sneaking him a small smile. But she's doing a better job hiding it as she has pulled Rickon into her lap and he's whispering into her ear about something silly. Sansa giggles, and then covers her mouth, telling Rickon they need to be quiet. Sansa laughing is too pretty a sight for Theon not to smile. He forces himself to look away, rejoining the main conversation happening. I still don't know if you can trust him, Lady Caitlin says. I've never liked Roose Bolton much. You never used to like Theon either, Rob reasons. Never trust a Greyjoy, you used to say to father and me, and yet look at all he's done for us. Went against his own father and brought Sansa home. Can you honestly say you still don't trust him? Lady Caitlin looks over to Theon, everyone in the room does. That's different, she says. Yes, I was wrong in my judgment of Theon, and for that I am sorry. I am happy to have been proved wrong, that he has put our family first and proved his loyalty. But not everyone is like that. Just because Theon had no ulterior motive doesn't mean Roose doesn't. But the same argument could be made for trusting Roose. Roderick reasons. The debate seems to start over again at that, but in the end it's decided that Roose will go, and Lady Caitlin will accompany him. They will bring 2,000 Stark men and 2,000 Bolton men on their march south, and they will be leaving in 3 days' time. Upon that decision, everyone is dismissed. Theon goes back to his room, waiting out there for a few minutes before deciding to sneak over to Sansa. The hallway to her room is fortunately empty, and he knocks at the door. Sansa opens the door and smiles at him, stepping aside for him to come in. Once she closes the door behind him, she walks right into him, wrapping her arms around his waist as he wraps his around her back and shoulders. I've gotten so used to being around you, she tells him, burrowing deeper into his embrace. I don't like that we have to hide like this. Neither do I, Theon tells her. But now's not the time to tell everyone. Your mother may no longer hate me, but that will quickly change when she finds us out. She never hated you, Sansa's quick to say. Too quick. And I'd never let her hurt you. I'd tell her that I love you as much as she loved father, and she wouldn't be able to stop me from being with you no matter how hard she tried. I love you too, Theon tells her, shocked he's able to say that with such ease. He can't remember the last time he said that out loud. And when the time's right, I'll ask your lady mother for your hand. We'll get married in the Godswood just like they did. Sansa pulls back slightly, smiling up at him. Do you mean it? She asks eagerly. With all my heart, he tells her. He leans down to kiss her and their lips melt together. She pulls back again. You'll have to ask Rob's permission too. She tells him. He'll be heartbroken if you don't. He takes his role as older brother very seriously. Theon leans in and kisses her again. I'll ask Rob, he concedes. Theon lifts her up as he deepens the kiss. He walks her back to the bed and lays her down gently. He climbs over her and kisses her sweetly. His hands roam over her body, her hips and thighs. He can't feel them as well as he'd like with her covered up in a thick dress, but he does not want to dishonor her, and knows as well that she's not quite ready for anything more than the passionate kisses they've snuck at night. Soon enough, he thinks to himself, smirking at the thoughts of all he could do to her. What are you smiling about? Sansa asks him between kisses. How do you know I'm smiling? He trails kisses down her cheek, before sucking on her neck, making her moan lightly with pleasure. I could feel it against my lips, she tells him. And what do you feel now? He asks her, as he runs his teeth and tongue along her exposed collarbone, nipping her slightly. Theon. She moans. Knowing he won't be able to stop himself if he continues like this, he moves back to her lips. They kiss until dinner time, and Theon has to sneak out her window and to the front of the castle so as to not get caught. Notes. Have you ever seen the wooden tulips they sell in Amsterdam? Look them up if you'd like. That's the kind of flowers Theon's making Sansa. I hope everyone had a great day. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Chapter 10, Adventure. Notes. See the end of the chapter for notes. Chapter text. Sansa is woken up early in the morning by Robb, on the day her mother is supposed to leave for Storm's End. Come on, Sansa, he says lightly. Mother would be happy if we were there to see her off. And they're leaving in 10 minutes. Sooner, if Roose is able to get his way and rush everyone out. Sansa gets out of bed, and knowing there's not enough time to get dressed, she pulls on a robe and her newly made cloak. She's just started to embroider the direwolf sigil all around the edges, with silver thread that shines in the sun. When she's ready, she takes Robb's offered arm and he leads her outside. Where are the boys? Sansa asks. Shouldn't they see her off too? Theon's getting them, Robb tells her. I imagine Rickon is just giving him a hard time. A couple of minutes later, Theon walks out dragging a half-asleep Rickon behind him. No Bran in sight. He leads Rickon over and has him stand next to Sansa. He looks up at Sansa and smiles at her, but there's something in his eyes, worry, maybe. He looks at Robb and says, we need to talk. Now. Robb and Theon step off to the side and Theon whispers to Robb. Sansa stands watching them, while Rickon leans and cuddles against her side, trying to fall back asleep. After Theon finishes speaking, Robb looks over to where she and Rickon are standing, and then back to Theon. The two of them now whispering back and forth. They talk for another 2 minutes before walking back over to Sansa and Rickon. Where's Bran? She asks. Sleeping, Robb answers too quickly. Theon couldn't get him out of bed. Theon grimaces at this. Couldn't Hodder have carried him out? Hodder is sleeping too. Robb. Sansa says, unconvinced by his lies. Sansa. He says back, no room for argument. We'll talk after Mother leaves. Not 1 minute later, their mother walks outside. They all say goodbye to her, and she hugs them each in turn, even Theon. She lingers on Sansa, holding tight to the daughter she just got back, and asks Robb where Bran is. She seems to believe his lie that he's asleep, and simply smiles sadly, telling Sansa to give her a hug for him. And with that, their mother, Roose Bolton, and all their men, are off. The second their mother is out of sight, Sansa turns back to Robb. Where's Bran? She asks again. Robb looks down to Rickon. Hey Rickon, Theon interrupts. What do you say we go take Shaggydoke and Grey Wind out for a run, huh? That'd be fun. Rickon answers, seemingly no longer sleepy. The two of them walk off towards the two direwolves before leading them away. Where's Bran? Sansa asks yet again, this time now insanely worried. He's gone. Disappeared in the night. Robb says, his own worry mirroring hers. What do you mean? Theon went to get him and he wasn't in bed. He left a note saying that he'd been having weird dreams, visions even, and that he planned to go beyond the wall in search of some three-eyed raven. Summer, Hodder, and Osha went with him. They left in the night. Where's the note? Sansa asks, she's unsure whether or not she wants to believe this story. Worse things could happen to Bran, but running away is pretty bad, especially going beyond the wall. Theon has it. I didn't want to look at it in the yard for everyone to see. Sansa nods. What are you going to do? I'm going to send a raven to Jon. Telling him what's happened, and I'll have him inform the rest of the Night's Watch to keep their eyes out and send Bran home should they see him. And if they don't see him, let's not worry about that for now. What do we tell Rickon? I don't know, maybe that Bran's going on an adventure, a journey far away. Robb says this sadly, and she knows they are both wondering the same thing. Will we ever see our little brother again? Later that day, Sansa sits in her room, working on her embroidery for her cloak, as Theon sits in a chair opposite her, reading a book. And that's all the note said. Sansa asks him. Yes, Princess, he answers calmly. His patience hasn't wavered even though she's been asking him about this for the last hour. You and Rob both saw the note, that's all it said. But maybe there was some sort of hidden message in it. Or maybe. Sangza, he says, trying to reason with her. She sighs. Theon continues, let's try and talk of something else, maybe. Like, he looks down to the book in his lap. Have you ever seen me read before? Why don't you make fun of me for that? Sangza giggles at this. You're right. I haven't ever seen you read before. I wasn't so sure you knew how. She teases him easily. If I didn't know how to read, then how would I be able to write you notes every morning? Sangza smiles sweetly at the thought of her morning notes, one of her favorite parts of each day. Every morning Theon has to sneak out of her room before getting caught, but he always leaves her a note, saying something sweet, charming, or so utterly adorable she falls in love all over again. Yes, Sangza agrees. And those notes are always so very well written. She smiles coyly at him and Theon sets his book aside, motioning for her to come sit in his lap, which she does. Her turns her slightly, so that she's more facing him, and he begins to press longing kisses down the side of her face. Sangza makes to move to straddle his lap, when her bedroom door opens. Sangza jumps off Theon's lap, bracing herself for whoever's at the door. It's only little Rukun though, and he's crying. Rukun, baby, what's wrong? Sangza exclaims. She pulls the boy into her arms, crouching down to hold him. Rob told me that Bran's gone, Rukun says sadly. Yes, but he's only gone on an adventure, Sangza tries to soothe. An adventure like yours? Rukun asks. What do you mean? When you, Arya, and father went to King's Landing, Arya said it was to be an adventure. But now she's dead, and father too, and Bran said they were hurting you. I don't want Bran to die, or get hurt either. Not knowing what to say to this, Sangza only hugs him tighter, wishing she knew how to stop her brother's tears. You know, Rukun, Theon says. There are good adventures too. Really? Rukun asks, looking up at Theon hopefully. Theon squats down beside them. Of course. Your sister and my journey to Riverrun, and then our next one to Winterfell, they were good and fun and nothing like Sangza's last one in King's Landing. Sangza looks to Theon gratefully. He's exactly right, Rukun, those were some of my favorite moments, on my journey back home. I'm sure Bran is going to have fun too. She wonders if it's a lie, if you hope it to be true. At this, Rukun is satisfied. And runs off to go find Shagadog and tell him the good news, leaving Sangza and Theon alone once more. Thank you for that, Sangza tells him. She goes to him and he wraps his arms around her waist, her own resting on his chest. He pulls her lips to his and begins to kiss her passionately. Sangza doesn't hesitate to reciprocate, and strokes his tongue with her own. Her hands move to his tunic, and she tries to pull it off him. Theon breaks the kiss to make quick work of the tunic, and then is kissing her once again, leading her toward the bed. They lay down on the bed, with Theon on top of her. She begins to unbutton his undershirt, getting lost in the sensation of him. She wonders what he'll do to her. They've only ever really kissed before, and while Theon has touched her, run his strong hands along her body, he's never touched her there. Sangza is thinking about asking him when her door flies open once more. Sangza, Rob calls, walking into her room. Have you seen? He looks over to see Theon on top of her, and his eyes go mad. Get off of her! He yells. He pulls Theon off and then punches him, causing him to fall back slightly. Rob keeps throwing punch after punch. Theon tries to block his punches, but he doesn't fight back. Robbie! Sangza yells. Please don't hurt him. He was taking advantage of you. Rob tells her, going in for a punch to Theon's stomach that Theon is thankfully able to block. I was letting him, Sangza says, trying to reason with her brother. This seems to have the opposite effect, however. Rob stands up straight and pulls Theon up with him. He drags Theon by the collar and drags him out of her room. Sangza scurries after them, warily biting her lip. Rob goes to his room and pushes Theon inside, slamming the door right in front of her face. Moments later, she hears the door lock, and Sangza stands outside helplessly, hoping Rob won't kill him. Notes. Double chapter day. Mostly because I'm going out of town and am not sure if / when I'll be able to post next. I am going to try and finish up the next chapter today, and if I can finish it, I'll post it today or tomorrow. Otherwise it will be a week or more before the next chapter is out. I hope everyone has a happy holiday. Leave your thoughts / comments / concerns in the comments. I always love to read them. Chapter 11, In the Name of Love. Notes. I hope you guys like this chapter. I am certainly nervous to post it. Please let me know your thoughts in the comments. I hope everyone had a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. See the end of the chapter for more notes. Chapter text. What the hell is wrong with you? Rob asks Theon, before punching him in the jaw yet again. She's my sister, my little sister. She's Princess of the North. I know, Theon says. He holds his arms up in surrender and thankfully Rob ceases punching. I know, Rob. I love her. You love her. You love her. Gods, how long has this been going on? Theon hesitates, knowing the truth won't exactly please Rob. Since we got to Riverrun. So the entire time you've been in Winterfell, you've been sneaking under my nose. I call you brother and in turn you fuck my sister. Is that it? I haven't fucked her, Theon tells him, hating how dirty the word sounds. I love her. I plan to marry her. Good luck with that. Rob scoffs. Theon takes a deep breath. You said I could have anything. Any reward for saving Sansa and warning you of my father. That's what I want. I want Sansa. You can't have her. Rob tells him. He's still angry, but there's a bit of sadness in his voice too. I guess he had been hoping it wasn't love, Theon thinks. Rob motions for Theon to leave, and he does. He opens the door to find Sansa on the other side. Your face, she exclaims, reaching up and gingerly touching a fresh purple mark on his swollen cheek. I'm fine, really. Sansa, leave him, we need to talk. Rob tells her. Theon walks past her and Sansa steps inside. He smiles at her reassuringly, but she can see right through it. Bracing herself, she stands across from Rob. Are you all right? He asks, worry in his brow. Yes, I'm all right. But Theon isn't. Did you see what you did to his face? So it's true then. Rob sighs. He really does love you. Yes. And you love him. More than anything, she tells him without hesitation. He's going to hurt you, Rob tells her, causing Sansa to make a face. I don't mean that to be rude. I love Theon like a brother, of course. I never planned on him actually being a real brother. Rob freezes, and Sansa looks at Rob questioningly. What do you mean? Her voice skeptic and excited simultaneously. Nothing. Rob tells her. I was only saying that I can see he cares for you, and that. Rob. What do you mean? Rob takes a deep breath. And then two more for good measure. He asked to marry you. He asked for my permission. He did. Sansa can't help but smile. You're not going to marry Hai. Why not? Sansa nearly yells. That's not your decision. Let me finish. Rob sighs, exasperated. You can't marry him until after the war. I still have to marry a free girl. The deal was that I would when the war is done. How would it look if I let my sister marry a man who offers no political advantage when I won't marry a girl whose father aided me in the war? He let you cross a bridge, Sansa argues. That's not exactly a lot of aid. It is in the eyes of Walder Frey. I guess, but I love you, Sansa. You're my favorite sister, you've always known that. He smiles sadly, and she knows they are both thinking of Arya now. I want you to be happy. If Theon makes you happy, then, well, I guess I'll get used to it. But we have to think strategically. You can't get married before I do. It won't look right. Okay, Sansa says. Hearing him say this, she realizes he actually does have a point. Thank you, Robbie. I love you too. You're my favorite brother too. Rob pulls her into a hug, and she melts into him. She forgot how much she truly missed her big brother. I'm sorry you have to marry a Frey. Sansa tells him, still in his embrace. You agreed to that for father and me, and now it doesn't even matter. And now you're even letting me marry for love, while you don't get to. You're a good brother, Rob. An honorable man, just like father. Better than father, even. Rob hugs her tighter. Thank you, Song. That means a lot. And who knows, maybe the free girl will be a love match. Maybe Rob agrees. But Sangza can tell he's only agreeing to please her. She pulls out of his embrace, wanting to look him in the eye for her next question. Do you really think he'll hurt me? Rob pauses, thinking over what he'll say before answering. No. Yes. I don't know. I don't think he'd want to hurt you. But he's not exactly, you know his reputation. Sangza ignores this. You owe him an apology. Yeah. I know. I'll apologize to him later, I need to go check on Rukun first. Sangza nods understandingly, remembering her baby brother's tears from earlier. You find Rukun, I'll find Theon, and in an hour we switch. Sangza asks. Sounds like a plan. The days seem to pass fairly quickly. Rob still acts weird around Theon. One moment he'll be taking his anger and frustration out on him in the training yard, and then next he's genuinely seeking his counsel over one matter or another. Sangza has started taking archery lessons from Theon with Rukun each morning. He spends an hour or two with them after training with Rob, and Sangza enjoys that they actually get to be close to one another in public. They still have to keep their relationship secret so that no rumors spread. Most days, she wakes, gets herself ready, then helps Rukun. The two of them eat breakfast together before checking on and grooming Max and Anders, her and Theon's horses. Then they go and learn archery, before Rukun retires to the rest of his lessons and Sangza retires to her sewing. Normally, Sangza would be able to see Theon in the afternoons, but Rob has been keeping him especially busy. When Sangza questioned Rob about this, he claimed to have no malicious intent, and Sangza is inclined to believe him. She's sure that his overly protective brotherly instincts are a part of it, but she also knows Rob has a lot on his plate and that Theon is able to aid him and offer him advice. So Sangza doesn't get to see Theon again most days until dinner. And at dinner, they have to act like nothing more than friendly, and not too friendly as Rob likes to remind her, so really she doesn't get to see Theon at dinner, because she doesn't get to truly be with him. After dinner, Sangza readies Rukun for bed, while Rob and Theon tend to the remaining matters of the day. She plays with him, then has him take a bath, and reads to him or tells him stories. Rob and Theon come to say goodnight to Rukun, and afterward, Rob always walks Sangza to her room and wishes her good night. Sangza is sure that Rob knows Theon sneaks into her room not much later after he leaves, but figures as long as Rob doesn't bring it up she won't either. She appreciates this show of trust in her, and in Theon too, and loves her brother all the more for it. At night, when they are finally alone, Sangza tells Theon all about her day as they ready for the night, and makes him tell her all about hers too. He then kisses her until she's dizzy, and they go to sleep. On this particular night, Sangza is sitting in front of her vanity and pulling out her braids, as she tells Theon about her and Rukun's encounter with the horses earlier that day. Rukun loves Anders so much says he wants his horse to look just like him. I told Robbie we'll have to get him a horse for his name-a-day. Sangza smiles sweetly. Theon looks to her from where he sits in a chair, removing his boots. That's a good idea, Theon agrees. Tomorrow the two of you should try and go for a ride. I'm sure he'd like that. He would, Sangza agrees. And I've missed riding Maximum. It will be fun for both of us. That it will. Finishing with her hair, Sangza gets up and goes and sits in Theon's lap, facing him. And how was your day? She asks, as she begins to pull his tunic up and over his head. It was fine. Better now, he replies. His arms circle her waist and he pulls her closer to him. He trails kisses down her neck and Sangza instinctively arches her back to him. His lips wander down to her collarbone, and linger there for a minute, before moving down to her chest, just above her breasts. He attempts to tuck her dress down, but it's tight-fitting with all her laces still tied. Sangza guides Theon's hands up to her laces, and he begins to pull them loose. When he finally gets the last ribbon undone, he pulls her dress off her shoulders and down to just above her waist. He pulls back to look at her, and a deep blush fills her cheeks. He's never seen this much of her, and Sansa waits for herself to feel afraid. Memories of Joffrey having me stripped in court should be flooding my brain, she thinks, but she finds herself distracted by the way Theon is looking at her. It's a peculiar look, one she's never seen on him or any man, full of an odd hunger, as well as a deep admiration she can feel matches her own desire. Theon finally looks back up into her eyes. He smiles when he sees her blush. "You're beautiful," he tells her. His smile widening as her blush goes from scarlet to crimson. Feeling embarrassed, Sansa looks down to her lap. But Theon's hand on her chin gently pulls her gaze back to his. "The most beautiful woman I have ever seen," he assures her. Not knowing what to say, Sansa smiles sheepishly and brings her hands to his undershirt. She attempts to undo his buttons but finds she can't keep her fingers steady enough to do so. Embarrassment clouds her face again and Theon chuckles. "Allow me," he says. He makes quick work of the buttons and pulls his shirt off. Sansa can't help herself from marveling at him. She's seen him shirtless countless times before, both in the training yard and in her chambers. Yet every time she sees him, she still finds herself overwhelmed by how handsome he is, how strong. Every inch of his muscular body is chiseled to perfection. And yet, he remains gentle with her, never pushing her too far or asking too much of her. Sansa told him days ago that she will remain a maiden until marriage, and thought, given Theon's past, he might protest. But instead he was completely understanding. But now, looking at him, and seeing him look at her, Sansa was beginning to question her own willpower as well as his. Theon leans forward and takes one of her breasts in his mouth, teasing it with his tongue while his hand takes hold of her other breast. Sansa squirms beneath his grasp, struggling to keep quiet. She lets out a moan that encourages Theon further, and Sansa grips at his curls, trying to steady herself and calm her emotions. Her breathing grows rapid and when he goes to pull away, she holds his head in place, not wanting him to stop. He chuckles against her, and it sends chills to her very core. "Theon?" she asks. "Yes, Princess," he answers dutifully. He brings his lips back to hers and kisses her sweetly. I haven't changed my mind," she tells him between kisses. "I know," he tells her, pressing his lips to the corner of her mouth. "I'm only kissing you." But, Sansa falters, unsure if she really wants to ask her next question. "Don't you want to?" At this, Theon pulls back slightly, and looks her in the eye, a serious expression beginning to overtake his face. More than anything he tells her honestly. "But you're not ready for that, and it's better that we wait anyway. We can't risk you getting with child when we have no wedding date in the near future. I fear Rob may geld me if that happens. But there's some stuff we could do that wouldn't result in a child, right?" Sansa asks shyly. Theon smirks at her, bringing his hands to cup her rosy cheeks. "Certainly," he tells her. "There's plenty we could do. But we don't have to do anything, so long as you don't want to." I want to," Sansa whispers. She meets his gaze so he knows she's serious. "Are you sure?" "Yes," Sansa tells him. She surprises herself with just how sure she sounds. She feels certain, but didn't think her voice would convey that. Theon grins, and then scoops her up in his arms. He carries her over to her bed, and sits her down on the edge. "Lie back," Theon tells her, and Sansa obeys. He spreads her legs apart and pulls her closer to him, before kneeling in front of her. "If at any point you want me to stop, just say so and I will," he promises. "I love you." "I love you too," Sansa says. She wonders what he's about to do to her, if it will hurt like they say it does when a husband takes his wife's maidenhood. Theon stands and leans over her, pressing a kiss to her lips, before returning to his place crouched down in front of her. Slowly, he pulls her skirt up above her legs until it's bunched up and resting at her waist. Next, he goes to remove her small clothes, happy to find that they are already soaked through. All the while, Sansa watches as he does this. She should be embarrassed to be this exposed in front of him. After all, the only part of her that remains covered currently is her waist, but she finds that she doesn't mind at all so long as he keeps looking at her with that look in his eyes. The same one from earlier. Theon snuck one finger inside of her, making her gasp, and moan, and spasm all at once. She covers her mouth with her hands as Theon looks up at her, grinning like a cat. He slowly pulls the finger out halfway, before pushing it back deeper, all the way to his knuckle. Sangza continues to moan, her hips jerking this way and that, as he brings a second finger inside her, and then another, pulling them in and out and twisting them to a perfect rhythm. He uses his other hand to massage her pearl, and Sangza finds her noises hard to contain, letting out a near scream. She covers her mouth again. Shush, Theon admonishes, even though he's smiling at her, his eyes filled with desire. Sangza nods. Or at least she means to, she's not sure if she actually does. Theon takes up his rhythm again, this time moving faster than before, and it isn't long before Sangza feels herself coming undone. When she's finished, Theon slowly removes his fingers, now coated shiny and wet. He licks them clean, causing Sangza to blush yet again, and then leans over her, capturing her lips with his. "Was that all right for you?" he asks. More than Sangza tells him. She feels his smile against her lips and she smiles too. "Perhaps we can do it again tomorrow?" Sangza asks, a little too hopefully. Theon chuckles, then nods. "I'd like that," he tells her. He stands up, and then helps Sangza stand up as well. He walks over and grabs her nightgown. Sangza lets her dress fall to the floor and steps out of it, before letting Theon pull her nightgown over her head. She pulls back the covers and then crawls into bed, Theon right behind her. He wraps one arm around her, her back to his chest, and he kisses her hair sweetly. "Good night, princess," he whispers in her ear. "Good night, future husband," she replies giddily. They both fall asleep smiling. Notes. Let me know your guys' thoughts on the chapter. Also, on the plot going forward, I need to do a bit of a time skip before anything major happens. Do you guys want another chapter or two of fluff, or should I do a time jump to progress the plot? Chapter 12, Back to Riverrun. Notes. See the end of the chapter for notes. Chapter text. More days pass until it's been nearly 4 weeks since her mother and Roose Bolton have left for Storm's End. Nearly 4 weeks since her dear little brother had run off in the night. There was still no word about him. Not from John nor anyone else. Sangza was beginning to grow more and more worried. First Arya and father. Now Bran. She wonders if all of her family is doomed to die. Am I to die as well? She thinks. No, I made it out of King's Landing alive, I shall survive anything. Especially now that she's back home in Winterfell. She remembers something her father had told her and her siblings when they were little, whenever they couldn't get along. The lone wolf dies but the pack survives. She wasn't alone anymore. She liked to think that father, Arya, and Bran were watching over her. And now that she's back home, she has Robb and Rickon. And Theon too. Her mother and John may be far away but she knows she has them too. It's strange, she thinks, of the care she now holds for John. She was never kind to him when he was home, and she hasn't seen him since they both left Winterfell, but she knows when she sees him again everything will be different. She'll apologize for her poor treatment of him and he'll forgive her. She knows he will. Their relationship will never quite be like hers and Robb's, but it will be better than before. Stronger than before. He'll be like a real brother to her now, and she will be like a real sister to him. Like Arya was. Sangza is sitting at the table, eating dinner with Robb and Rickon. She looks over to Theon sitting at another table and sees him sitting and talking with Roderick Castle. Robb's been much less stressed lately. He's waiting to march south until hearing word from Stannis and their mother, and so he doesn't have the stress that comes with being on the battlefield. He still seems just as busy, tending to all things as the Lord of Winterfell, king in the north should. But he seems happier now, and looks younger too. Sangza has been making him and Theon shave, just as mother would have. They look much more their ages this way, and much more refined and dignified. When do you think mother will be back? Rickon asks, his mouth full. Sangza lightly scolds him, wiping at his cheek with a napkin. Don't talk with food in your mouth, she says. Sorry, Rickon tells her. He finishes chewing, swallows his food, and asks again. When do you think mother will be home? Not for another month, at least. Robb answers. She would have only just gotten to Storm's End within the last few days. They need to negotiate with Stannis, which could take time, before she's able to make her way back home, and the journey home will be just as long as the journey there. Really? Rickon whines. First Mother leaves, then Bran, too. Why is everyone always leaving? You won't leave me, will you? Rickon looks to Sansa. Not when you've only just come home. Of course, and Sansa starts to say. About that, Robb interrupts. He takes a deep breath and takes both Sansa's and Rickon's hands. I got a raven this morning. It appears grandfather fell ill not long after Sansa left Riverrun and passed away a few days ago. I plan to leave for Riverrun in the morning. Sansa's coming with me. You're both leaving? Rickon asks. He seemed perfectly fine when I saw him. Sansa says at the same time as her little brother. He was old. Uncle Edmure thinks he caught the flu and it was just too much for his body to handle. He wasn't in any pain, though. He died in his sleep. And we're both going to Riverrun. Is that wise, leaving Rickon here alone? Sansa asks. It's not unwise. He's safer in Winterfell. And he won't be alone. Lewyn, Sir Roderick, and Theon will all be here. He looks at her apprehensively as he says Theon's name, as if he's unsure how she'll react. Sansa grimaces. She would rather have Theon here with Rickon, but she doesn't want him to not be with her either. And is it safer for me to not be in Winterfell? She asks. You'll be traveling with me, so you'll be perfectly safe. We're not on enemy lines anymore. And the bastard king and his army are still very much south. He plans to marry Margaery Tyrell, did you know? Within the next 2 months or so. That will keep him preoccupied for some time. How long will we be gone? Sansa asks. Not too long, just the weeks it takes to get there and back, and I imagine we'll stay for the funeral and maybe a little longer, so I can discuss things with Uncle Edmure. More than a month of being away from Theon, she thinks sadly. And we leave tomorrow? She asks. Early morning, Robb confirms. We won't take many men with us. It's better to keep the troops here in Winterfell. I told Sir Roderick that a dozen would be fine. Okay. I can't believe you both are leaving me. Rickon whines again. I'll be all alone. Who will play with me during the day? Theon will, and Shaggy-Dog. Robb answers. He motions over at Theon for him to come over. But you'll be acting Lord of Winterfell while I'm gone. Just like Bran was. Listen to Lewyn, Sir Roderick, and Theon and you'll do just fine, all right. Okay, Rickon tells Robb dutifully. Theon walks over and takes the open seat next to Robb. I take it you told them. Theon questions Robb. Oh, he told us, Rickon says, earning a laugh from the three of them. Theon fills his plate with food and the four of them finish dinner in pleasant small talk. Sansa can't stop herself from looking at Theon the remainder of dinner, sad she won't be able to see him for long. Theon keeps glancing at her, with the same morose look in his eyes, and when dinner is done, Robb says that he will ready Rickon for bed, so that he can spend some time with him before he leaves, but Sansa promises she will come say goodnight to Rickon when it's time. Theon and Sansa don't say much as he walks her back to her chambers. Both seemingly at a loss for what to say. When they get to her door, 2 servants exit Sansa's room, telling her bath is ready, before walking off. Theon glances around the hall to make sure they're alone and presses a quick kiss to her forehead. I have to go take a bath too, he tells her. But I'll be back after. Sansa grabs his hand before he can walk away. You can take one here, she tells him, a rosy blush filling her cheeks. They had gotten more comfortable with each other these last few weeks, but Sansa still got shy when talking about the intimate details of their lives. Theon smiles at her. Are you sure? Yes, she answers, as she pulls him into her room, a seductive glint in her eye. An hour later, they were both clean and cozy, sitting by the fire in their nightclothes. Sansa sat in his lap, putting the finishing details on a new tunic she was making for Rickon. She planned to give it to him in the morning as a goodbye present. She had made a tunic for Theon too, but had given it to him a few days earlier. Theon's was a deep, stark grey, with sea green designs to match his eyes, and the stark direwolf sigil embroidered at the center. Rickon's was similar, only it was a lighter grey, and had blue detailing to match his tully blue eyes. She just had to repeat the design once more on the collar, and then she'd be done. Theon was less preoccupied. Haphazardly reading, as he held the book with one hand and played with her hair with the other. He seemed to bore of the book not long after, setting it down and bringing both hands to her hair. Braiding it loosely, then unbraiding it and doing it again. They sat like this for at least an hour, not talking much at all. When Sangza finished the tunic, she sighed, folding it and setting it down on the table next to her. She leaned back into Theon's chest, and he automatically wrapped his arms around her, hugging her to him. "Time for bed, princess," he whispers in her ear. "Yes. No, I don't know." She sighs again, exasperated. "I don't want this night to end. I don't want to say goodbye in the morning." Theon's arms tighten around her. "Nor do I, but it won't be for long. We'll be back together soon. But not soon enough. Who knows, you may forget all about me in our time apart," Sangza says. Her voice is half joking, but Theon can hear the genuine worry in it too. "I could never forget about you, Sangza. Never." He loosens his hold on her and takes one hand to turn her face to his, so she can see the sincerity in it. Sangza's response is to press a kiss to his lips. After a few moments, she pulls back and rests her forehead against his. "I couldn't either," she tells him quietly. At that, Theon kisses her again and then lifts her up and carries her to bed. Once under the covers, they both fall asleep almost instantly, exhaustion taking over them. Theon wakes up several times throughout the night and early morning, panicking that Sangza's not near. Every time he wakes, she is still very much clutching tightly to him, her face resting on his chest, yet Theon still can't stop himself from worrying. He doesn't want her to leave, or Rob for that matter. He has a feeling that something bad is to happen soon, and he doesn't want to be apart from Sangza when it does. He can't voice these thoughts. Rob would call him a paranoid, lovesick fool, and Sangza would only worry. So stays quiet, and relishes the feel of Sangza in his arms. Notes. Hi guys. I've decided I'm not a big fan of writing smut, so I have a feeling the rest of the chapters will be very PG-13 or less, but we'll see. I hope everyone has a great day. Please feel free to leave a comment. I love to read them. Chapter 13, see you soon. Notes. This chapter is a little on the shorter side, so I figured I wouldn't make you wait too long for it. I hope everyone has a great day. Please feel free to leave a comment. See the end of the chapter for more notes. Chapter text. When morning comes, Sangza wakes to Theon not in her room. She's used to this, but still hates it. At least it will make it easier to wake up without him while I'm away, she thinks. She looks to her bedside table, for Theon's note of the day. She smiles as she reads it, folding it back up and tucking it away in her drawer with the rest of them. She puts on a pale purple travel dress she had made nearly a week ago. She had planned on only wearing it while riding Andus, not actually thinking she'd be traveling anytime soon, but at least this way she gets the most use out of it. She sits at her vanity and twists her hair back into a tight, slightly intricate braid. She looks to the vase of wooden tulips Theon made her, all painted different shades of pink, purple, and blue, and smiles. When she finishes with her hair, she grabs one of the tulips, a purple one that's maybe 2 shades darker than her dress, and packs it away with the rest of her things she's bringing on the journey. She hears a knock at her door, and goes to open it. "Morning," Rob says, smiling tiredly at her. "Is your bag packed? I'll bring it outside if you go and wake Rukan." It is Sangza answers. She motions to where her bag sits on her chair, and Rob grabs it, slinging it over his shoulder, where his own bag rests as well. Sangza grabs Rukan's tunic, and a handkerchief too, a last-minute parting gift for Theon. Rob offers her his arm, and leads her down the hall to Rukan's room, before walking off. Sangza walks in and sets the tunic and handkerchief down. She walks over to Rukan, who's still fast asleep tangled up in his covers. "Morning, sleepy," Sangza coos. She gently shakes his shoulder before entangling him out of his quilt. "Sangza!" Rukan exclaims, his voice laced with a yawn. He sits up slowly and reaches his arms out to her, for her to pull him out of bed. Sangza pulls him to his feet and he stretches. "I have something for you," she tells him sweetly. "A present?" Rukan asks, wide awake now. Yes, Sangza giggles. She grabs the tunic and shows it to him. Rukun eagerly gets dressed so he can put it on. Rob gave me a present last night too, Rukun tells her. He points to the corner of his room where a small sword sits. It's short and skinny, with a simple black handle and a direwolf pommel on the end. He says I can practice with a real sword now so that when you're both back, I'll be much better. What a great idea. Sangza agrees, running a hand through his hair lovingly. I named it Frostbite. Rob says every sword has a name. When Rukun's fully dressed, with Frostbite attached at his belt after he begged Sangza to let him wear it, the two of them walk to the front yard. There they find Rob, Theon, Mayor Stillowin, and Sir Roderick, as well as the dozen soldiers who will be accompanying Rob and Sangza on the trip to Riverrun. Rob says it's only a standard precaution, but the sight of so many men makes Sangza shiver. Theon notices, and without thinking, secures her cloak more tightly around her. Sangza smiles at him, but Rob shoots him a warning glare. Theon drops his hands to his sides. Sangza, Rob says. I left your gloves in your room by accident. Perhaps Theon can escort you back quickly so you can retrieve them. Sangza looks down to her hands. She has a pair of gloves, but she doesn't wear them unless winter is harsh. She hadn't even thought to bring them. She looks at Rob confused. He looks at her, his eyes dart to Theon, and then back to her. Oh, she thinks, he's letting me say goodbye. Sangza smiles gratefully at her brother. Oh, yes, she says. I'll be needing those. She looks over to Theon, who grins at her, offering her his arm. Right this way, princess. Theon tells her. They walk quickly, for they are in a bit of a rush. When they get to her room, Theon opens the door for her, and Sangza rushes over to her wardrobe. I think I have gloves in here somewhere, she tells him. I don't think Rob actually meant for you to grab them. I know. But having them will make the story plausible. Theon agrees. Perhaps this means Rob's come around to us, now. Maybe. But I'm not so sure. Here they are. Sangza holds up a pair of brown leather gloves. She tucks the gloves into the pocket of her cloak, and when she looks back up, Theon is standing right in front of her, mere inches away. His arms then circle her waist and pull her closer. She rests her hands on his chest, sneaking the handkerchief she made him into his chest pocket, and looks up at him. I don't want to say goodbye, she confesses, a small frown forming. Then we won't. It's not goodbye, it's a see you soon. But not soon enough, she laments. Theon pulls her chin up towards him slowly. He brings his lips to hers and kisses her sweetly. He kisses her for a few moments, but when Sangza brings her hands to his hair, he stops. He curses under his breath before saying, we have to go now. If we're gone any longer, Rob will be mad. Sangza sighs. I know. Theon gives her one last quick kiss, then two more for good measure. Then offers her his arm before they head back outside. Saying goodbye to Rukun is a lot harder than Sangza thought. When she last said goodbye to him, they had both been much younger, happier, more innocent. They didn't think that there would be such terrible hardships ahead. But now they know they don't know what to expect. Rob gives Rukun a big bear hug, whispering in his ear sweet words of brotherly encouragement. You'll be acting Lord of Winterfell while we're away, but you'll do great, and it won't be for long. And you've got your new sword now. Every good lord has a strong, sturdy sword. Rukun only nods and hugs him tighter. Rob hugs him back, and then passes Rukun over to Sangza's arms. Rob steps over to Theon, who is standing partially off to the side, feeling out of place. Rob pulls him into a hug. I am definitely still a little mad at you, he tells him quietly. But I meant it when I said we're brothers for life. Watch over Rukun, and Winterfell, too. When Sangza and I are back, we'll discuss your reward for bringing her home. Theon pulls back to give him a hopeful, yet questioning look. When we get back, Rob says. Theon agrees. Sangza, who had been cuddling sweet Rukun, feels him start to shake in her arms. Don't cry, Rukun. She tells him sadly. Please don't cry. If you cry, I'll cry. I'm sorry, Rukun whimpers. I know I shouldn't, but I'll just miss you so much. You and Rob. I'll be all alone. Sansa thinks back to her last day at the Red Keep. To the moments before Theon rescued her, when she watched as Princess Myrcella was shipped off to Dorne. She remembered little Tommen crying, and how Joffrey ridiculed him for it. Oh, how she hated Joffrey for doing that. She hated him always, but she could never be rude to her siblings the way he was to his. Not even to Arya. Not even to Jon. She pulls back from Rickon slightly, and wipes away his tears. She kisses both his cheeks and forces the happiest smile she can muster to her face. It's only for a little while, we'll be home soon. She promises. Rickon nods, and gives her one last hug, before walking over to stand beside Maester Lewyn and Theon. Sansa looks to Theon and he smiles at her. She smiles back. Robb clears his throat. All right then. Best get going. Robb helps Sansa onto Andus before mounting his own horse. And they set off. Sansa turns back to wave at Rickon and Theon, and before she knows it, they are out of view, hidden by Winterfell's strong walls. Notes. I picture Sansa's light purple dress to look like Annika's dress in Barbie Magic of the Pegasus. The one she wears for the majority of the movie. Chapter 14, Little Talks. Summary. Mostly Robb / Sansa talking, because I really do think they're my favorite Stark sibling pair. Notes. Happy New Year. See the end of the chapter for more notes. Chapter text. They are hours into the journey before Sansa sees Robb again. The two of them had been riding up front, leading the party down the King's Road, but there was commotion happening amongst the tail end of the soldiers, so Robb had to sort it out. He rides up and lets his horse fall into gait alongside Andus. Hey, he says. How are you doing? I'm fine, Sansa says. It's the truth. She is fine, but she's also dreadfully bored. None of the soldiers cared to hold a conversation with her, and they looked at her weird when she tried to talk to Andus. So she's taken to riding silently, something she's not used to. Theon always talked with her when they rode, and Rickon did too, the handful of times the two of them were able to ride together. She hopes she'll be able to ride again with him soon. Both of them. Sorry I had to leave you, Robb says. I know it can be boring to ride alone. Unless you like the quiet. Not really. No. So what should we talk about then? Robb asks, smiling at her. Sansa smiles at him too, but then she gets serious. She doesn't want him to think she's joking when she asks her question. Did you have me go with you on purpose? To separate me? And Sansa looks around to make sure no one is close enough to hear him. Not entirely, no. Sansa looks at him pointedly, and he continues. That's an added bonus, he confesses, bringing you along, but that's not the reason I did it. We need to show that we are not afraid. That we're not just going to lock you up in Winterfell to keep you out of the Lannisters' grasp. I'm also not too worried about them attacking Winterfell anytime soon. Mother let the Kingslayer go not long after I sent Theon to Pike. I wasn't happy about it, but it doesn't really matter now that we've got you back and Arya's. Robb winces. Sansa does too. Do you really think she's dead? Robb asks. Yes. No, I don't know, no one was able to find her. And I know she's capable, but she was a child. I don't think she could survive on her own. I couldn't have survived without Theon. If she did survive, she'll know to make her way back north, that she'd be safer there. Maybe she'll be back soon. Maybe. Sansa agrees out loud, though she disagrees in her mind. When did Robb become more optimistic than me? She thinks. Are you mad at me? Robb asks. Sansa looks at him confused. For not rescuing you. I was going to, I know you know that, but I didn't make it as urgent a matter as I should have. I was so focused on war and battle strategies. But I should have come sooner. If I had known, Theon said they hurt you. That every time I won a battle I was stupid. I believed you were a well cared for prisoner. I didn't think that I'm sorry. I should have been there. I should have been the one to bring you home. I'm not mad, Sansa tells him honestly. I'm really not. Do I wish you had got there sooner? Yes, of course. I hated being there. I was so scared all the time. For me. For you. For mother and the boys. And yes, they beat me every time you won. But I saw those as battle scars. Every hit was proof that you were one step closer to me. And you had a lot going on. You still do. It's a lot of work to be Lord of Winterfell. Let alone King in the North. I really am sorry. He says again. I'm glad Theon had the sense to rescue you. Sansa smiles, me too. Do you love him? For a while I thought it was just to punish me. But if you're not mad at me, you must really love him. I do. I really do. Good. One of us should be happy, and it should be you. You'll be happy too. Sansa promises. I never thanked you. You still have to marry a Free. You did that for me, and father too, but, still, thank you. I didn't have much of a choice with that one. Robb laughs lightly. Regardless, Sansa shrugs, trying to think of a way to cheer her brother up. I'm sure she'll be lovely. They can't all be as awful as Walder, can they? I'm sure there's at least one genuine, nice one in the bunch. Yeah, Robb agrees. She'll probably be ugly, though. Robbie. Sansa admonishes. She slaps his side lightly, but sees him laughing. I was only joking, he says between laughs. Well, mostly joking anyway. Sansa laughs despite herself. You're terrible. She tells him. But they both can't help laughing about it. Later that night, Sansa, Robb, and the soldiers make camp. Sansa is in charge of making dinner, while Robb and the men set up tents. It's 2 to a tent, with Robb and Sansa sharing one, and 2 guards to be on duty, rotating all throughout the night. They had packed some venison for the journey, along with bread and cheese. Sansa places the meat over the fire to cook, and then slices the bread and cheese. The meat finishes just as the tents are all set up, and so everyone eats. When everyone's done, they all clean up and pack the rations away, hanging them in a tree to keep wild animals away. Sansa goes to her tent and puts her nightgown on. She braids her hair into 2 French braids, tying them with ribbons she made out of leftover fabric from Theon's tunic. She takes out her embroidery. Currently she is embroidering Katniss flowers all over the bodice of a pale yellow dress she had finished sewing the other day, and she sews by the lamplight, while waiting for Robb to come to the tent. Half an hour later, Robb comes and readies himself for the night. Once he's in his nightclothes, he climbs into bed. Sansa packs away her dress and climbs into her own cot, situated right next to his. Robb blows out the lamplight. Good night, Robbie. Sansa whispers. Night, Sang Robb replies, followed by a yawn. Notes. This chapter is even shorter than the last. Sorry about that. I just didn't want to add a bunch of unnecessary writing. Next chapter will be Hoster's funeral and what follows. Then chapter 16 we'll see what's happening back in Winterfell with Theon. I hope everyone has a great day. Chapter 15, Funerals and Weddings. Notes. I hope everyone is having a great day. Please feel free to leave a comment. I always love reading them. See the end of the chapter for more notes. Chapter text. 2 weeks have passed when Sansa arrives in Riverrun. It feels different this time around. There's a morose feeling lingering in the air, as the whole of Riverrun mourns the death of Lord Hoster Tully. When they arrive, Uncle Edmure and Uncle Brynden are there to greet them. Uncle Edmure looks sad, but he still smiles at her sweetly, pulling her into a hug. He shakes Robb's hand, but Robb is quick to walk off with Brynden to discuss the war effort, so Edmure informs Sansa of all the funeral plans. Well, send him off in the water, tomorrow, he tells her. A small ceremony, but the townfolk will be there to watch. Sansa only nods, unsure of what to say. Edmure continues. After that, I know your brother was hoping to discuss some things with me, and I'm not sure how long you both are planning on staying. Not too long, Sansa tells him a little too eagerly. She backpedals. Rickon was too young to make the journey here, and we don't want to leave him alone in Winterfell too long. With Mother in Storm's End and all. Edmure agrees. Yes, your brother told me about that in the last raven he sent. I'm surprised he's letting her. He seemed not too happy with her after she let the Kingslayer go. Yes, well, he didn't want the Boltons to go alone, and I think mother wanted to make it up to him after the whole Kingslayer incident. Makes sense. Caitlin never liked upsetting Lysa or I growing up. I can only imagine how much it pains her to upset her son. Sansa nods again. You'll be back in the room you were in, with your brother in the one Greyjoy stayed in. Her uncle tells her, changing the subject. Sansa can't help but smile at that. He didn't stay there, not really, she thinks. He was with me. Where he's supposed to be. The last thought saddens her.